Hey guys, good morning. We'll just give it a few minutes for everyone to get in, but yeah, definitely an exciting update today with everything going on with Terra and other stuff. So we'll get into it in just a minute. Chad, how's it going?
Pretty good. I'm just poking around with this spaces stuff. I've never actually created a space before, I don't think. So I'm trying to like familiarize myself with like the UI and just like clicking around on things.
Yeah, seems like you got it figured out. Looks normal. You got me up as co-host right away, so all good. Maybe you can recode Twitter Spaces in your spare time. Seems like it's pretty buggy sometimes.
Yeah, it's pretty annoying. Is it like I hate it when the audio gets all like robot-y or whatever as a speaker. It's really annoying.
Yeah, that's super weird. And then like how we were talking, like you can't host it from a desktop. So you either need like two phones if you want to do it from the main account, or it's just kind of a mess. But it is what it is. It's honestly, it's been like just so amazing for crypto Twitter as a whole, though, right? Like I feel like Spaces really took crypto Twitter to the next level. So I'm happy for it, even if it's a little buggy.
Yeah, definitely, it's a good thing. It's like, and obviously they just straight up scraped it from Clubhouse, right?
Right.
But it's pretty awesome. It allows you to connect with your community in a new kind of way, which is pretty fantastic. I'm sure they'll work out the bugs too. I mean, Twitter is a very smart company with a lot of smart engineers there. So just give it time. I'm sure they'll work out all the bugs. I mean, that just happens with software in general. Like you build something, you launch it, it's always buggy in the beginning. And, as it matures and it gets a little bit more hardened and, you know,
Totally. Just like THORChain. Hardening Twitter Spaces is the next
yeah,
phase.
they'll get it done. I'm sure they'll get it done. We got how many here now? Probably check.
Yeah, it looks like almost 100. So we can probably just, I'd say let's just get started. Um, yeah, let's just start with some intros. Chad, you want to just give a quick introduction?
Yeah, so I'm Chad Barraford. I'm one of the core devs on the project. Usually I'm doing this from my own Twitter account, but today some people weren't available to get something kickstarted on this account. So I'm just kind of filling in for now in this regard, but looking forward for another potential marathon of all things THORChain.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I'm Chad THOReau. I do content and education for THORswap, as well as just generally helping with the THORChain community, like helping, like co-hosting these spaces and stuff like that. Just a Thor Chad who's excited about everything happening, so trying to spread the messages. And these updates, yeah, they're every Friday at this time, 12 Eastern. The recorded, you can always refer back. Basically, we'll just go through a handful of updates. I know everyone's excited about the Terra launch specifically. There's a few other things too, and then we'll just open it up to Q&A, and I'm sure we'll go down a million different rabbit holes. Probably THORFi seems to be the hot topic as of lately. So so definitely think up your THORFi questions and any questions really. Beginner, any level, we'll welcome all of that after we go through some of these core updates. So yeah, let's just jump right in. So I think the first thing that's top of mind for everybody is Terra launch progress. So we're really in the home stretch here, but maybe a little breakdown of like what these final steps are, like where we are in that process. You there, Chad?
Yeah, sorry, everything went just like haywire on my system all of a sudden. Oh, weird. Yeah, so we, as a community, we got the Terra client out there deployed. The daemons deployed as well. That happened in the latest version of 1.82, 84, or no, 83. I think it was 83. Um, and so that's been adopted as of like a few hours ago. And so at this point, what we're waiting for is effectively the treasury to wake up, to the time zones, not their time zone per se. And so once the treasury is up, we can go ahead and enable churning, which I think will pretty much immediately start the churn process. And once the churn is started successfully, it'll create Terra addresses for all the Asgard vaults. And then once we have that, we can enable LP actions, which the treasury will, to like kickstart the Luna and UST pools. And then once that's done, we can enable trading on the Terra chain for swapping and trading and stuff. The one caveat is, though, so people are just aware, is that the Luna pool should be available more or less immediately, but the UST has to go through like the pool churn process, which happens like once every 3 days. So and it just basically picks the pool that's the deepest, and obviously UST will be the deepest by a good margin. So I'm not really worried about that part. But so once you get Luna set up and run and trading and all this kind of stuff, within 3 days, I'm not sure exactly how much time it is, but within 3 days, the UST pool will just kind of churn into the network, and then UST will be available to trade as well.
Awesome. Yeah, exciting. I'm looking at that GitLab checklist as well. People can find that. I'm pretty sure it was tweeted out from the main THORChain account recently. But yeah, you can kind of see like the exact breakdown of what needs to happen. And yeah, next up is that manual churn. So yeah, that's a great clarification about the UST pool. So as of today, probably a handful of hours, Luna pool goes live, and then the next normal churn, UST comes in, and then business as usual at that point, which is going to be epic to see. Even as of today, just to be with Luna, I mean, that's already massive. But yeah, then UST will really seal the deal in a few days. Exciting. Cool. Yeah, like I'm sure we'll open it up to questions on this topic, but we can just kind of hit that as the update for now. But if people are in here that are like curious about exactly what that means, what you'll be able to do, we can definitely like dive in deeper into that stuff in Q&A. Let's just go to the pooled nodes update, which allows node operators to take in bond from like a small crew of trusted individuals. So could you explain just like the importance of that, and maybe like the security implication, like how that's still secure, and just how we kind of expect that to amplify the bond wars, all that?
Yeah, so the feature, as you said, like allows multiple people. I think right now the limit is set to 7, which can be increased by a node mirrors if people want to do that. But the idea is that like a few of your friends run together to run a node and get churned into the network and start earning rune on your rune. And so before, you could do this before in some sense of like, me and Chad THOReau are friends, and I give Chad THOReau my rune, and then he bonds it into his node, and then, he pays me back later on whatever is owed to me relative to what I've contributed to this node versus what he's contributed. But so the difference now is that like I don't have to give my rune directly to Chad THOReau anymore in this hypothetical. I can just give it to the node itself, and the network will pay me back what I'm owed, rather than Chad THOReau paying me back what I'm owed. And so that makes things easier for Chad THOReau. Like he doesn't have to worry about like doing the math correctly or not. It's already handled by the network itself. And in case there's some sort of like, maybe some like tax complications to that as well, potentially, like, he's paying me, I'm giving him services and he's paying me. Does that require some sort of like 1099 form or something? Like, I have no idea. I'm not a tax person, but that's another kind of thing to be considered of. But the one thing you have to be sure of, and I just want to make sure the community understands this is really important, is that in this hypothetical, like Chad THOReau still has access to that Yggdrasil vault and access to those funds, and he can, steal those funds, which will slash both of our bonds for that, slash. So we both kind of lose to it, but he might end up becoming more profitable on the other side of it. So make sure that if you are doing this, that the person that's running the node that for you on your behalf is somebody that you know who they are, you trust who they are. You don't think they're going to, rug pull you and steal your rune and all this kind of stuff. If that were to happen, you would lose some money, but the network would not. The network would be fine, because the network would slash people what the node was supposed to be slashed, and so the liquidity in the network will be just fine. Actually, technically, it actually increases because somebody stole, $1,000 and then it gets slashed $1,500, and so the network actually profits from that scenario technically, but you as a bond provider to this node, like you're getting the shit end of the stick here. So just make sure you're not just like, some random dude hits you up on Discord or Twitter or something like this and says, hey, give me your rune and I'll run a node for you. And like you say, great, like don't do that. That'll be a bad idea. So just to make sure people really understand this component.
Yeah, great to clarify that. And a good warning that like, you know, I haven't seen anything, but I'm sure like I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some scammy stuff start popping up, people trying to game that and pretend like it's legit. But yeah, important to realize there's still a trust component there. But also better, so much better than like the other example you gave of where like, oh, we could have done this before, but it's just purely like, oh, I'll give you my rune. This kind of like programs it in such a way. I believe like the operator also kind of there's like a set fee as well, right? Where they're kind of getting almost like a management fee or something. Is that, does the node choose that fee or?
Yeah, right now it's a set fee of 20% based upon the conversations that we've had with various people who do Node as a service in like the general space, including who are trying to get into this space. So right now it's set to 20% just for everybody. But in a future release or future code change, we could set that out so that people can change their yield that they earn, their take, their cut of the yield that the node generates. So hypothetically, like the node operator itself can just bond up with like one rune, right? And then all the other providers provide the real quantity of rune, and then they just take 20% of whatever's earned on this node via running the node. But I think maybe downstream we can make a code change so that people can individual node operators can say, oh, I want to do 30%, or I want to do 5%, or I want to do something else, and you can kind of negotiate with your providers what's a reasonable take.
Got it. Yeah. So would it be like fair to say, just for people that might want to like use this in some way, like the perfect candidate for this might be somebody that has the technical skills to run a node, doesn't have the full rune required to run their own, but might have a few really close friends that they could pull together and make it happen. So the way I'm seeing it is that's kind of like the ideal sort of situation, like maybe a few people, trusted people, one of them with the right tech skills can come together and pull their rune in this way. So
yeah, I think that's a reasonable use case, but it's also possible that that like Bison Trails or company, right, might start to offer this as a service, right, where they have kind of contracts. They're like an actual legitimate company that does Node as a service for many different chains. And so maybe you're okay with using them if you don't have a technical friend who can do it on your behalf, because they're a company and you think it's a good company, you don't think the company's bullshit or whatever, and you can go ahead and take that that approach if you choose.
right, yeah, great point. Yeah, I'm sure we'll see that popping up, no doubt. Though, like as you said, there's the limit on how many people. So they would still be. It wouldn't be like you would just throw 100 rune in or something for this. It would be more like they get. Did you say up to, what was it, 4 or 6 people?
I think it's 6 or 7. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but that number is set by a Mimir, so it can be just arbitrarily increased. The reason why it's set to 7 to start, or 6 to start, or how the number was, is because we didn't want to turn this into some sort of like mass thing. Because if you get into like a mass scenario where like I'm running a node and there's like 400 people contributing to it, it becomes, it's hard to like properly KYC that from the user's perspective. Like it just becomes a bit overbearing in many respects. And so you kind of want to start small to begin with, just you and your friends, and just kind of keep it close knit. That can be changed in the future if people want to change it, increase it to 10 or 20 or higher. Like that's, it's arbitrarily can be made as large as you really wanted it, really.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see, because yeah, like as that like number scales higher, then there's just exponentially more individuals that could participate. Like if it's only 5 or whatever, then everyone's still going to be putting up 50 to 100,000 rune or something like that, which is still a pretty large amount. It's less than 600,000, but yeah, in the future, that's cool to hear. Yeah. Oh, and so I think the important piece of this is like, this will really amplify the bond wars, right? Because now suddenly like a node can become like let's say a node has their 600,000 or whatever, and the bond wars are going up and they don't have the rune. They can kind of like recruit somebody potentially and keep their node bonded in. So I would imagine this like is going to be a pretty strong factor in the bond wars, increasing security. Would you say that's likely?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, it's all the bond wars are already healthy right now. Like the bond wars, like I think the next churn
Yeah.
was like I think like 640,000 rune in order to get in, which is pretty nice, right? And eventually, I think it's very well possible, or maybe even likely, that eventually it'll get to like 1,000,000 rune to be able to even churn into the network once the bond wars go on for long enough. Especially as more people are getting into the space, like there's a bunch of capital that's looking to run a node or many nodes or several nodes from early investors, and they're probably going to utilize this feature. A lot of them, like I know people who are big investors into the Rune token, early on, and they have a good sizable bag, but they don't have the technical skill sets to actually run a node, nor do they really want to kind of take on that responsibility or kind of like work. And so this idea of being able to use this kind of pooled node thing kind of like opens up something for them, makes it a lot easier of an on ramp for them to get into this space. And so they have a bunch of capital, and all of a sudden that's going to become available to run as a node for them in a simple way. And then all this that will obviously cause, as you were saying, like more bond wars, right? And more the bonds just going to naturally be pushed up for nodes who are running. Because right now, I think a lot of people who are validators, I think a couple of them are like maybe running 2 nodes. It's they'll probably be forced to shrink their 2 nodes into 1 node, right? Because the bond wars is pushing it up so high that they can't afford 2 nodes now, and so they have to be pushed into 1. And so like that will just further increase the bond wars in many respects.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is gonna like really make a big difference. By the way, to people requesting, just stay requested. We'll get to everyone, all the questions after we kind of just get through 2 more updates or so. So just hang tight, and we'll start bringing everyone up. Let's talk about now that Terra is essentially here. What's the next big thing on the agenda? Like, what is your focus, or the core team's core devs focus going to be over the next like several weeks or month or so? What's kind of top of the list post Terra?
Good question. So now that we've done the hard fork, there's going to be, I think, some kind of code cleanup happening for non-exciting stuff. It's like code cleanup, like squashing the old code that's no longer needed in the network, in the code anymore, the old versions of the code, like linting some things, blah, 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 like a bunch of small work like this. For more interesting stuff, next is probably going to be a few different things. One is Thor names could possibly come out very soon. The work is already done in that regard. It's just a question of getting it tested and released and get that kind of kick-started. The other thing is IBC integration, so being able to send out Rune to other assets, other chains, but not synthetics. I think synthetics will stay local to THORChain. We want to make sure that those synthetics are used primarily for to arbitrage the pools. And then after that, it is DEX aggregation, which is going to be really exciting to see, and allowing THORChain to swap out to another DEX, which could be 1inch or Paraswap or Astroport or maybe even Osmosis or whatever. And so you can start at a short tail asset like Bitcoin, and then get to some random long tail asset like Link or AUST in a single transaction, which would be pretty awesome to see that when that happens. And then after that, I think probably the big thing that I'm thinking about is THORFi stuff, which we'll get to more details on that later. But then it's like kind of sprinkled amongst all that is also just going to be more chain clients, right? And that might be Gaia, that might be Zcash, it might be Secret Network, it might be I don't know what it's going to be exactly. It's just a question of which team that's currently working on their chain client is going to finish more or less first, along other attributes. But that's another thing to be kind of an ongoing process.
Yeah, exciting. There's just so much in the pipeline. It's like really just shipping season. Like you kind of mentioned, doing some non-exciting things, and like you guys have always been pushing so hard, but like now it's cool to see the forward, like the consumer facing stuff is all kind of happening and coming together, which which is awesome. And you touched on THORname service. I'll just drop like a little hint: is look at the mainnet checklist and just notice what has not been checked off of that list yet, and that might get people excited about another timeline. But yeah, and then you mentioned THORFi, which I'm sure people will have questions about, but the doc was revealed this in this past week, which was really exciting to see the broader community get access to this infamous PDF. So yeah, how do you feel about, like, I don't know, just like the response? Has anything interesting come up? How do you feel about like the reception to THORFi more broadly so far?
Yeah, it's been, I think, it's been mostly positive, I'd say. But I think for a lot of people, it just takes some time. For most people, vast majority of people, it takes some time to comprehend it. I mean, you have to kind of like deprogram yourself in the way that you think about DeFi to think this new like idea. It's almost like somebody says, "Oh, hey, I invented this car," and then like somebody comes up and says, "Well, where do I feed it? Grass?" You know, like, I feed my horse grass. Where do I feed the car grass? And you're just like, no, 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 it's not grass. It's something completely different. It's a bit like that sometimes, and like lines of questions that people are asking, and some of the assumptions have to be kind of rewritten in your brain in order for it to actually comprehend and make sense. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part, right? Is like the visceral reaction of, oh, this is impossible. Like, this kind of breaks the paradigm of what's already been done. But that's the exact same thing that the THORChain team has like been pushing from the very beginning, right? Like, just this whole concept of even cross-chain swapping was really like the same response initially, right? I mean, it was like, that's impossible. You can't do that. That'll never work. So it's kind of like, it almost feels like V2 of that in a way.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I remember people kind of like in the beginning, people thought that cross chain was going to be this big thing, and like this is years ago, being into cross chain swaps, and everybody thought like atomic swaps were going to be like the avenue of success in this regard, which ended up just being a complete waste of time. Like, nope, there were a bunch of atomic swap dexes that were created, and none of them had any trade volume whatsoever for a whole host of reasons. But and so everybody just kind of started to think about, like, when they thought about cross chain, they kind of just stuck to like the EVM world, because there's something programmable within an EVM that you can actually program and do something. You can't really do that within like a UTXO chain, for example, or a crypto node chain, or many of the chain styles out there. And so, but we were as a project, we didn't want to be, we wanted to solve the whole problem, not just kind of like, oh, well, like, we'll halfway solve it and just support these, handful of EVM chains. We wanted to make sure that we actually solved it on like, holistically speaking, and completely solved the issue. And to this day, like, everybody who comes out, with a cross-chain kind of like competitor to THORChain, like, they're still just, going for the lower hanging fruit, easier path of just solving the EVM chains, and then not trying to solve like the larger issue, like the larger. And so there was a lot of kind of questions in the beginning, like, well, how is the funds maintained, and who owns those funds, and like, how decentralized are you running all the nodes, and blah blah blah. And like, and people couldn't believe that, like, oh no, it's anonymous individuals, controlling hundreds of millions of dollars without any ability to steal, which is economically secured and proven in a sense. And so, like, that was like a big, kind of took a lot of people to get their brains beyond that. And even today, I think some people still haven't quite wrapped their brains around it to some degree, to be honest with you. But like, what's a project we've always been just like, let's think about, from a first principles perspective, what is it we want to achieve, and forget about whether or not people think it's possible or not. Let's explore the idea, and maybe we'll hit a wall and we won't be able to solve it, and maybe we won't, and we'll figure out a solution that is quite economical.
Yeah, totally. And that's also a good thing to throw out to the community is, if you are digging through this doc and just to try to poke holes in it, if you are one of those people that can really game theory this stuff out, that's kind of like what this phase is for. Um, and yeah, like similar with like explaining the security and stuff like that, I think over time we just need to like tighten up like the explanation, right? It's like with the security, it's like, oh, nodes bond more than they secure. It's like, okay, kind of like simplified it. Whereas like right now with like no liquidations, it's like, well, what do you mean that the protocol can just like be quote unquote like underwater on the collateral and be okay with that? So it'll kind of like it'll take some time probably to figure out like, you know, how do we just immediately make people kind of understand like the like kind of like the bold like not like the non-neutral sort of stance that THORChain has in this, right? Which is that it's basically shorting the dollar by taking that position, which is really like an exciting piece of it, I think. I'm starting to pull up some questions, so or audience members. So if anyone else, feel free to just like request. We can questions about anything, basic THORChain, Terra integration, THORFi, anything goes. But let's see. I think Marx is connected, unless.
Yeah, well, first off, applaud you for your efforts. Thanks for everything you guys are doing. The question that I had is in terms of messaging. I know when you put out the Dodge chain launch, you had a coordinated effort with one of I think it was either Cointelegraph or Coin Bureau. But are you anticipating doing something similar to kind of bring broader awareness to the Terra launch?
Well, so that stuff is not handled by the core protocol or the core team. We kind of made a determination early on that we, as the core developers of the core protocol, don't really think about marketing in that sense. We just provide value, and then the UIs that integrate with us, like THORSwap, for example, they can make out some publicity announcements about on Cointelegraph or whatever that, THORSwap now supports Terra or Doge or like whatever. But we don't have any marketing people at all within the core team. It's a very small team of like really like 8 people or so or something like this, like 8 or 9 people, I think. Almost every single one of them are engineers. I think everybody except for one is an engineer. It's like one project manager kind of person. Everybody else is contributing code. And so we don't have any marketing people. We don't think about marketing at all, to be honest with you. We just kind of build something that is revolutionary in its own right, which gardeners, support and people like yourselves to become fans of and then tweet out. And so we kind of subscribe to more of like a grassroots kind of mentality of marketing rather than some sort of top down, like some of these chains out there, like Algorand, for example. Like my friend is like I think the director of marketing there or something like this. And like the marketing budget is huge and they spend massive amounts of money and do all sorts of stuff. And I mean, it works for some, I suppose, but Bitcoin didn't really have a marketing team behind it. It had marketing, but it wasn't done by Satoshi. It was done by the community as a whole, and I think we're kind of following that mentality.
Yeah, okay. Just to add on that though, the core team is building. There are like so many teams building around THORChain, right? Like we're like Nine Realms has brought a crazy level of professionalism to it. So what you saw coordinated with the Doge launch was essentially like the first of a more coordinated push. So that was like the trial run. So I would definitely, like, I don't know, like what's official, what's not, whatever, but like I would absolutely expect there to be more of a coordinated push with help of Nine Realms, with help of all the interfaces and apps like THORSwap, like other community projects and stuff like that. We'll definitely be putting out all sorts of content and tutorials and explainers and trying to get press and stuff like that. But yeah, good to I think it's actually great that the core team is not worried about that. I actually think that's a huge pro. But it is something the community thinks is important, and yeah, like that's kind of like what we all can do just as community members here, as well as the various apps and interfaces and teams like Nine Realms. So yeah, for sure. Let's see, Blockhead, how's it going?
Hey, hi. Just wondering about the THORname service. Like, if I if I go on the website, like it says the pre-register ended, and so is that like how would I, someone who didn't pre-register, be able to get my hands on THORname services?
Yeah, well, once it launches, you can go ahead and register whatever name you want at that point. The pre-register was just more of like we'll give free Thor names to the community, the kind of the early adopters, if you will, and just to ensure that they can, they don't get like rug pulled in the sense of somebody else buys, Chad THOReau, for example, and then tries to like gouge Chad THOReau on the pricing on that or something like this. And so we kind of gave the community that ability kind of in the early days, and all that code is already written to kind of like create those Thor names and associate the correct Thor addresses. But yeah, once the feature actually launches, you can just go ahead and register whatever name you want to register, and then you can use that as your personal Thor name.
Okay, great, thanks.
Cool. Raphael, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? So I just have like two questions in regarding THORChain. The first question is kind of like half related to THORChain and like half related to like tax purposes. So just to give you like a little bit of background, like I figured out like the way to like get native Rune is through using like the XDeFi wallet and then using THORswap to get the Rune. But my concern is like how can I download like a transaction history or like deposit withdrawal history for like those type of transactions where I get into Rune for like tax purposes? Do you know?
I remember seeing, I forget who put this out, but I have it saved somewhere. Maybe you can DM me, or maybe I can tweet it out later. But I saw a community member put together something that allowed you to export like all your transactions just like in a spreadsheet. I don't know if any of like the more organized tax services have integrated with THORChain yet, but I would imagine stuff like that is coming. But yeah, as of now, what I've seen is this one way of exporting it, but I forget who it was or what the name was.
Is this regarding XDeFi wallet?
Well, so this is regarding. I'm referring to like any THORChain transactions, basically. Like, so if you were doing swaps via XDeFi, those are swaps through THORChain. So you'd be like exporting that, like any of the swaps tied to those addresses and stuff like that. So whether it was XDeFi,
the history is not going to come from XDeFi wallet. Like the history is going to be all on THORChain. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the history is on various chains, right? Like XDeFi isn't like custodial for that. Like if you do the swap within XDeFi, you do the swap within THORswap. Like either way, that's like a THORChain transaction, right? So I think it would just be pulling like all of your THORChain transactions. It wouldn't like, I don't know if XDeFi is offering something that would like only pull the transactions you're doing within their wallet, like possibly if they were wanting to do that, but I don't think that's a thing right now, at least.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be easy for somebody in the community. I'm not sure if this would be THORswap or anybody in the community could build this, where you put in a series of addresses, like your Bitcoin address, your Thor address, your Ethereum address, whatever, and then it just queries, Midgard to get all the transaction histories of every swap you've done on every day, and how much you sold, how much you bought, how much you paid in fees or whatever it might be, and then just collects it into like a CSV file of some kind, and then you can import that into a tax document that is appropriate for whatever country you're a part of. All that data is available, so and Midgard has it all for you. So each guy have the correct queries and get the information. So it'd be pretty easy for somebody to build a tax UI, like THORchainTax.com or something, whatever, and then just it produces that kind of that transaction history of all your trades and swaps. And then you might include like your add liquidities and your withdrawal liquidities too. Like that's another tax thing to be kind of cognizant of, so you can probably include that stuff and that information as well. It'd be kind of an interesting project for someone who wants to take that on in the community.
Yeah, as we keep going, I'm going to try to find this tweet. It was a couple months back. So, but if I find it, I'll pin it in the space, like right above the speakers. So might circle back to this in a few minutes if I can find it. But yeah, I'm sure stuff like that will pop up more. So let's go to Zane.
I had one more question before could I ask that?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the other question was, is there like any not disadvantages, but is there like any concern to holding the BEP rune or the ERC token for rune rather than holding the native rune? Like, is it possible like they completely remove that from exchanges or no?
Exchanges will probably not remove it anytime soon. For sure. I mean, I don't know why they would. Not that I speak on the behalf of other exchanges out there. There might be a drive at some point, and we might add this into the code at some point of like what we call the kill switch, and then the node operators can choose to turn it on. Whenever the node operators choose to turn that on, we start to the 1-to-1 ratio between BEP2 rune to native rune starts to change. Where you get, instead of 1-to-1, you get 1 to 0.9 or 1 to 0.8 or something of this nature. And so that just to kind of start the process of kind of kicking people over to the native asset. So, I mean, unless there's a real reason to be holding BEP2 rune that you want, maybe because you like the UI better of some Binance, I don't know, whatever that reason might be, I would just start swapping over and holding native rune. It's more useful anyway.
Okay, so basically, it's not really like any type of concern, right? Is what you're saying?
Not really. Just if you're holding those assets, don't log into various websites and give up your private keys, or for ERC20s, don't start signing shit. Just be careful. Just basic stuff, really.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Also on that tax question, I just pinned the tweet I was referring to. I haven't personally used it or vetted it, so do your own research with that. But seems pretty cool and sounds like it basically does what we were referring to.
Hi,
thanks.
Good evening, sir.
Hey, sure, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Do you have a question?
Sir, I'm in India, and nowadays in India, the government proposed for 30% tax on crypto. So, can you tell me about if you have a decentralized wallet so that I am does not pay the crypto tax to India? If you have any decentralized wallet?
Do you mean just to take self-custody of Rune?
Sir, I don't want to pay the 30% tax to Indian government. And actually, I want a decentralized wallet that doesn't pay the tax to Indian government. If you have any decentralized wallet?
Well, I mean, it's kind of up to you how you handle your tax situation and whatnot. We can't really. I don't think it's really our place to give you tax advice. But when you have crypto in your own self-custody wallet and off of an exchange, then it's kind of on you to, everything is still public and transparent. But that the kind of like a big point of crypto is to get it off of exchanges so you can have full control of it. Still legally are having to pay taxes, but that's kind of up to your way of navigating that. So
Okay, understood. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks. Let's go to Zane.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. And this is not a tax question. This is a liquidity pool question. So I deposited some Bitcoin and Ethereum recently, but it's still in THOR5. It's still in the stage of like a pending pool. And even like if I look at it, it's been taking a couple days. I just wanted to know what is the usual timeline for pools to be like it to deposit and like show up in your pools?
Typically, for Bitcoin to be more or less 10 minutes, 20 minutes, something like this, not days.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of the issue that I've been having. I just didn't know if like this has happened before, and if you guys knew like what I could do, because it's just stuck on the pending stage. And so, yeah, I just want to be able to.
Is it saying to complete the other side? Like, for example, like did the Bitcoin go in, but it's saying you have to deposit the Rune? maybe it's just waiting for the second transaction.
Maybe. So I deposited the Bitcoin. It says the Bitcoin's in, but like when it says add rune, it says the transaction. We're not letting you go forward to the transaction because it will likely fail.
Interesting. Yeah. Are you doing this on THORswap?
Yes.
I would say to just jump in the THORswap Discord and open a support ticket. There's 24/7 support, and they'll definitely like walk you through, figure out exactly what's going on there. But yeah, usually it's pretty much right away. So
okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have an easy fix for you. But yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the help, guys.
For sure. Let's go THORanon.
Interesting that my name is still showing up that way. I've changed it to show something else right now, but that's beside the point. My question was related to in the past, there'd been messaging around THORChain supporting 200 to 300 node operators, but kind of now there's more discussion around bond wars at the 120 node kind of count. Has something changed, or is there an update that would unlock the higher node operator count that we're waiting on?
There's no like change that's being waiting on. Like the code is available to do it like today if people wanted to do it today. I think if people want to go to 120 or larger, then it just requires the node operators to vote and make that happen. And I think part of maybe what the resistance to doing so at this stage is that with every new validator you add to the network, going from 100 to 120, everybody's getting the same amount of like yield despite how much they bond. And so like you're getting a smaller kind of slice of the pie, right, as a validator of the network. And in this moment, because the incentive pendulum is so much on the side of the pools, the node yield isn't like overwhelmingly amazing, right? It's like all that yield is going towards so a lot of it. Part of it is going to the pools, and the pools are making like crazy high yields right now. Which that might change as part of like the Terra integration today, where a bunch of people are going to add liquidity, which is going to push the incentive pendulum back towards the nodes, and they'll start earning a higher yield and like all that kind of stuff. So there's nothing really waiting for as a project other than just node operators voting to move it to some higher number.
Okay, great. That's a good data point to have. Kind of a separate question. I realize the update to the Ledger app is waiting on Ledger approval, but some transactions appear to at least be possible still using Ledger on THORChain. Is it currently possible to add to a liquidity pool from a Ledger right now symmetrically?
Should be. Yeah, I've done it actually since the update. Yeah, Chad, go ahead. I don't know if you have more technical understanding.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, just as far as I know, like they had to update like the chain ID, stuff like that, but should all be working. I think the app, if you're installing it for the first time, was hidden for a bit. I'm not totally sure of the status on that, but if you already have the app, you should be totally good to go. I've definitely done that myself with no problems. I think there was a few days where XDeFi was a little behind on their update. I'm pretty sure that's been taken care of at this point. But I was connecting Ledger directly to THORswap, and that was working as of like a few days ago. So yeah.
Okay. Since the merge, I haven't been able to send native rune from one Ledger wallet to another. Using the THORswap interface, kind of a direct connect Ledger connection, I would get an error message, and they assumed it was related to the Ledger app itself. But good to know that at least for you, since the merge, the LP activity has still worked.
Yeah, not too sure about that, but it sounds like you might already be talking to support, but yeah, I'm sure that'll get sorted, but yeah, hopefully. Not too sure.
All right, thank y'all.
Cool. Let's go to Mr. Dollar Signs.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Hey, first off, thank you guys so much for letting me ask you questions. Big geek on Thor, excited for the technology and what it means. I think it's more of a philosophical movement in finance, and I'm very excited about it. I was listening to oh, thank you. The chat last night, and I actually have two questions. Um, so for me, the thing on cryptos is if you own your own wealth, you become a sovereign person, and then in theory, you can almost be sort of a sovereign individual, so to speak. And what I love about Rune is it's a decentralized tool to swap between different assets without a person in the middle. And so what I wanted to ask you, someone asked about Monero, and I know that sometimes within this community that's a point of discussion. I love this romantic idea of being a bankless person that just goes everywhere. Um, and I'm curious, is how much of a is that a priority to find? I mean, they were explaining last night how it's very difficult to make that happen, but is that a priority to figure out a way to have Monero swaps on THORChain? And then the other question I have is, I imagine that there's a degree of anonymity that is always needed to be maintained with a project like Thor. And I'm curious, have you guys been dealing with outside pressures, governments, regulations, or uh, anything like that? And yeah, that's my question. Love the project. Um, keep doing what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. First question about Monero. So before we do Monero as a project, I think what's probably going to happen first is Haven. Haven has a fork of Monero, and the Haven team has been working on for many months now on getting the chain client working with Haven, which is a very difficult task, and they've been doing a really good job, kind of getting through it all. It's looking like there's still a bunch more work to do, but it's looking like I think we solved all the hard problems of how to get it actually to work and function. At least in theory, that's true. And so I think we're getting closer for sure, but there's still a bunch of work to be done. Once we have Haven done, then we can start to turn out that code and turn it towards Monero. But the problem with Monero that Haven doesn't have is that Monero limits the byte size of the memo in Monero to be like 16 bytes, which is very, 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 very tiny. And so, in order to be practical, to be able to transact, we need to be able to stuff like 100 bytes, 130 bytes worth of data in 16 bytes of space. And there's some concepts internally about how we can accomplish that. And we have some ideas how that's practical and possible. But it's gonna take some time to get there for sure. I think we'll see Monero on the chain at some point in the future. When that timeline is going to be, it's nearly impossible for me to say, but I'm hoping in 2022.
And most likely,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and most likely another privacy or even multiple, probably more likely before Monero, but definitely still in the works. And then, yeah, the other question was on regulatory pressure, I believe.
Right. So other projects like Zcash and Secret Network, they are easier to implement on THORChain because they don't have privacy built into the secret token, for example, is not a privacy token itself. And so because of that, it's a lot easier to interface with than, Monero, which is privacy by default. So it uses rig signatures and all this kind of cryptographic jazz in a sense. So we'll likely to see Zcash and maybe Secret Network on the network before Haven or Monero, but we'll get a bunch of them on for sure. And regulatory pressures, like at this time, I have not heard from or had any contact or communication with anybody in any regulatory sense or government sense at all. I think we're way too small potatoes at this time to warrant such a kind of a talk. I think they're probably aware of us because I do know the one thing I do know is that that at one point Shapeshift had a conversation with their regulatory people because they've had a relationship with them for like years and years and years. And at one point, Shapeshift had a conversation with them saying, okay, we're going to like, no longer have relationships with you anymore. And we're going to switch to this thing called THORChain. And we're going to like, decentralize ourselves entirely. And so, goodbye. And that must have been a kind of a funny conversation to be a part of. But like, so they probably have some awareness that we exist, but probably don't really care because we're such small potatoes in terms of the trade volume and this kind of stuff. Like they're more focused on bigger fish to fry in many respects. Not to mention that they're probably more focused on rather like regulatory changes, like enforcement is kind of, criminality is I think they're more focused on right now than coming up with regulatory changes to regulate something like a THORChain or something like something else out there. So I haven't heard anything yet. I'm sure it will happen at some point in the future. Probably not even over the next couple of years, to be honest with you, but you never know. And by the way, and if we end up adding something like Monero, like you were saying, then that might change that, right? Because once we integrate with the privacy chain like Monero, I think state agencies are very much interested in the transactions that are happening within Monero, and so that might put us on their radar earlier if we were to add something like a secret network or Zcash or Monero or any of these things. So it's another thing for the community to consider.
Oh, of course. And I just want to clarify, I wasn't trying to put you guys on the spot or anything like that. I'm just very fascinated on the prospect that, Thor is the first tool that I've seen that allows you in a permissionless fashion, purchase cryptocurrencies and easily swap into stable coins. And, we're seeing these movements around the world where either Bitcoin or certain stable coins are being used to facilitate transactions. So I really see this possibility, and I'm putting a lot of money on it, that Thor will be an everyday part of life for so many people. If there was an integration of privacy, I don't think that and people that want privacy is a nefarious thing. But I think everybody is entitled to some privacy and some degree of freedom and anonymity. And it's weird when you use your bank account, you're always being watched. I don't know how anybody can be comfortable with that idea. So anyways, that's just my thought. I really appreciate your technology. I think it's not getting nearly as much praise as it deserves. This can really, beyond just making every single person on this chat exorbitantly wealthier, it's really creating an impact on so many people around the world, and that's what cryptocurrency is about. It's more than just gains. So I greatly appreciate what you do, and just keep it up. The world is going to be a better place. I think THORChain is part of that story. Anyways, I'll leave the floor for someone else.
Love that. Yeah, that's why we're all here. Speaking of privacy, let's go to Secret Ninja.
Yeah, hey, congrats on the Terra integration. Really excited about this one. I was just wondering, since you said that UST is not available for trading right away, when are we able to LP for the UST pool?
LP you can do almost immediately, just trading won't be available. So as soon as the pool gets created, the Treasury will do that later today. At that point, you can add your funds into it, and then within 3 days later, trading will be enabled on that pool.
When trading's not enabled yet, in that, like, what about, like, do you have to be more careful with, like, I mean, there's no kind of like, how's the price rebalancing, or like, do you have to be kind of more careful in that stage?
Not particularly. Like, so you can't trade to correct the pool price, but you can like add liquidity and withdraw liquidity, right? So you could like add liquidity to the pool and then single side withdraw, right? And then that you can actually change the pool price via add liquidity and withdraw liquidity. And some R bots actually do this for stage pools. So which they maybe they're going to do that here. The one thing people should be aware of, actually, thank you for reminding me, is that like ILP doesn't start until the pool is active, right? And so if you jump in now and then there's a bunch of IL that happens, like you won't get ILP protection for those 3 days that you were in the network at all. And so it's something to consider, right? So you can still jump in now, whatever, and that's fine. You just like your 100 days don't start until the pool becomes active. Then the 100 days starts at that point.
So if I provide my UST and rune now, and I will have, I don't know, 25% impermanent loss during those 2 days, will I be made whole after 100 days still, or just when the impermanent loss protection starts working?
Trying to remember off the top of my head in the code, but I think how it works is it just that that your impermanent loss protection starts when the pool becomes available. So if you put it in today, you'll get no ILP over the next 3 days, and then the pool becomes enabled or available for trading, and then a day later you get like 1% protection, and another day later you get another % protection. So you still get protected in the end. You just have to be in for 103 days instead of 100 days to get 100% in this case.
All right, thank you very much. Really appreciate your work.
Cool. Let's go to Amit.
Hi guys, this is Amit. Appreciate your work and thank you for taking my question. Hopefully it's an easy and quick one. I remember around Q3, Q4 last year, there was a guidance of converting your bnb.rune to native rune, but in small quantities first, and then maybe it was to relieve congestion on the network. My question is that now if we are converting any bnb.rune to native rune, are there any such guidance that we should be aware of?
Not particularly. Just you can go ahead. You can switch whenever you feel like it, or if you don't want to switch, you can also just swap your BNB, your BEP2 rune to BNB, and swap the BNB to native rune. You can do that as well. Whatever course of action you want to take.
Cool. Does that?
Hello.
Hey.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. I have one question. Actually, around 2 or 3 months ago, I had been with Phantom community. I invested my whole money to Phantom, but around 1 month ago, I heard that Andre Cronje, the official partner of Phantom DeFi, could leave the crypto space. He's the key person, he is the key person of the Phantom DAO. After that, I lost my trust of Phantom blockchain. After that, I analyzed about THORChain. I appreciate that the team behind the THORChain is very dedicated, and the way you guys are doing for THORChain community is very interested. So I invested my whole money to THORChain, and I believe that will be the best decision of mine. I trust to the THORChain team, so I want to ask you one thing: am I did wrong or right?
I mean, you're kind of just asking like financial questions. Like, I think we should try to keep these questions a little bit more to like, how do I use THORChain? How does stuff work? What's coming? But obviously we're all in it because we think this is a really important project for crypto. We think that there's interesting value capture, interesting tokenomics. So obviously on a personal level, I'm bullish. I think we kind of all are, but I don't think anyone can tell you for sure what's going to happen. Like Rune is still going to be correlated to dumb stuff on the news and media and what Bitcoin does. Stocks, whatever the hell, right? So like nobody can really be certain, but do your own research, not financial advice. But we definitely believe that this is like important technology, and it helps the entire crypto space.
Yeah, right. The way you did the work, I like the most.
Cool, thank you. Let's go to Thor Guardian.
How are you guys? How's it going?
So I have two questions, guys. The first question is in regards to the new option for node operators, basically for people that have a certain amount of rune and they want to put it into work into nodes. The person that will be operating the nodes, I saw a tweet that you guys were asking if somebody has knowledge in managing servers that can operate a node. My question is in regards to those people that are able to do that. Is that something that that is secure? Meaning the person that will be handling the funds for the people, if that person can maliciously do anything to the funds. That's the first question. So and I saw that there was 20% profit for that node operator. So that means a person can operate one node, 3 nodes, or 4 nodes. Is there a limit to how many nodes that person can operate? And the second question is about THORify. I know it's in the works, but I would just want to get a speculative dates, more or less, towards the end of the year, maybe in summer, that THORify will be implemented.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that if somebody is running a node on your behalf, that person is trustworthy, because they can rug pull you. All right, I'm trying to be very clear with the community about this, and that's why I'm kind of stressing this multiple times in this conversation, is that they are operating that node. They have access to the usual funds of that wallet, and therefore they have access to be able to steal funds from you, not from the network, not from the LPs, not from the rest of the people, but from you as a bond provider to that network, to that node rather. So be very careful about who you're working with in this regard. Make sure they're trustworthy, that they're not going to rug pull you, and if they do, you have an ability to seek legal recourse to be able to get your funds back or whatnot. So keep that in mind. Don't give your rune or to anybody or any node that you don't personally know and have a trusted relationship with. Be very clear about that.
Oh, okay, I got you. Okay, thank you so much. In regards to THORify?
THORify, it depends on a lot of different things. It's kind of hard to kind of predict. Most likely, at least how I'm thinking about it today, is that assuming that everybody likes the design and the community approves of it, and let's assume that all goes swimmingly, which maybe it won't, right? Who knows? But assuming that goes swimmingly, we'll probably have one PR where derived assets, come out maybe in 2 or 3 months time frame, possibly, depending upon the smoothness of a few different things. And then the lending and savers will probably land at the same time because they kind of utilize each other to function. You don't have to do that at the same time, but it's beneficiary to do so. And that'll probably happen another maybe 2 months after that, if I had to take a guess at it. But I could be wrong. You never know. Life is crazy, and life in DeFi is even crazier. So you never know what's going to happen. But I would expect it to be done by the end of the year. I'm pretty confident about.
I got you. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
I know that so far we've been growing organically, which is incredible. I mean, I've been with THORChain since November 2019, and I saw Twitter kind of grow from nothing, literally a few hundred people, to where we are today, and this is just incredible. I witnessed THORChain from white paper going into what it is today, and I love the community. I love the team. I'm just ecstatic about the project, and this is my baby. But I want to know, in regards to marketing, is this something that the team may be planning to do later on after mainnet launch, to do some kind of marketing campaign, or we're going to continue growing organically?
There's no plan right now to do any kind of mainnet marketing thing. Like the team in general are not marketers. We don't really have any idea what we're doing in that sense, to be honest with you. And we've done that more or less on purpose. We wanted to stay focused on shipping code and making sure that all the resources that we have, both from a treasury perspective and from a talent perspective, is focused on just shipping code, shipping features, adding value to the project and to the room holders. and that kind of mentality, and then allowing the rest of the community to kind of market on the project's behalf using whatever mechanisms or talents or skills or resources they have to be able to accomplish that. So there's nothing really nothing planned in this moment in that regard. I don't see that changing anytime soon either.
I got you. All right, awesome. Thank you very much for everything. I appreciate everything you guys do for the community, and the project is absolutely mind blowing. Thank you so much. Keep on the work.
And on that, just real quick, we touched on it earlier, but like keep in mind just all the other teams that will be doing marketing, all the interfaces, 9 Realms doing business development type of stuff to get integrations done with other applications that then, so it's not like you're not probably going to see, a THORChain commercial on TV or something, but there's definitely going to be pushes for these integrations, and then all the various applications that use THORChain obviously want to attract users and all of that. So let's go $60 and then Austin.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Also from me, congratulations for the Terra integration. Let's keep fingers crossed it all goes well. Hope you're already in touch with THORquan to show him that he can swap his USD directly into BTC and not going over a SEX. My question is back from the discussion of the privacy coins. I work at the bank where I lead a cryptocurrency initiative or project, and we speak with a lot of chain forensic tools, like Chainalysis, Elliptic, and that kind of stuff. And there arose a question that always bothers me with THORChain, and I was just wondering if you already thought about that. And let's assume that like the Bitfinex hacker or one hacker, which drained a big DeFi protocol for like 100,000 ETH or Bitcoin or whatsoever. That happens quite a lot in DeFi. So let's assume that we have added Monero, for example, and the hacker just basically like swaps all the Bitcoin into Monero, and just stays in Monero for a week or transfer it in and out, and Monero is pretty hard to trace. So, and then like a month later or so, he converts all his Monero back into ETH and withdraws the ETH and is gone because he's not trackable anymore. But now, like the pool of BTC in Rune is basically filled with Bitcoin that's flagged as hacked or stolen Bitcoin. And now every LP in the Rune Bitcoin pool, if they withdraw Bitcoin, they might get like flagged Bitcoin as stolen Bitcoin. And I mean, the chain analytics tools are pretty sophisticated, so they know exactly which Bitcoin is going where. And if I now LP like 10 Bitcoins into the pool, and now all of a sudden my Bitcoins are labeled as, those are Bitfinex had Bitcoins, I can't deposit that into, like an exchange if I want to do, like fiat, go back into fiat. Have you ever thought about like how that could play out, or like it's a threat to the THORChain itself, or isn't that a threat, or what do you guys think about that? Thank you.
I mean, we haven't seen that yet, and I mean, I don't think it's going to be much of a problem just because it's not a problem already on other exchanges for a while. Like somebody could take some ETH and put it into Tornado Cash, and then take that that ETH back out a while later and swap it into Coinbase or whatever, or some other decks, whatever, blah blah blah. And I haven't heard any stories yet. I mean, maybe my head hasn't been held high enough to notice it, or whatever. But I'm usually heads down in code personally. But like, it hasn't been a problem yet, and it could become a problem downstream potentially, maybe. But we'll deal with it when we get there, and we'll do the best we can to alleviate that risk.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey guys, still love what you guys are doing. Chad, I reached out to you, and you know what's going on with my situation about the funds being stolen last night. I was just wondering if you could give me some clarity on what options I have in terms of law enforcement, being able to track the Bitcoin that was that they took out of the account, or that they transferred Rune to Bitcoin and put that in their own wallet. Can you just give me, like, you saw the transaction? I sent that to you. Can you tell me what options I have, please?
I mean, honestly, I don't know what options you do have. I'm not an expert in like this sense of the crypto world. If I guess the only thing I can think of is to look at the Bitcoin address that received the stolen funds and see if it has any transactions with a centralized exchange at some point in its past or future, in a sense, like if there's any new transactions that it sent some Bitcoin to, a Coinbase or something like this, which you can detect. I think a lot of the addresses, the cold wallet storage addresses for Coinbase and other ones are like publicly known. And if you see that, then you can maybe contact customer support, or I don't know what federal agency would be the appropriate one to connect with. I really honestly don't know the answer to that.
All right, sweet. Thanks. And then if there's any way I can like get involved working for the community to help recoup my losses, I'd appreciate that consideration as well.
Well, yeah, in general, like if anybody in the community has some sort of ability or skill set or something they want to do for the community that provides value for it, oftentimes the treasuries, is open to, supplementing you, financially to, so that you can produce whatever you produce, whether that's content or I don't know, who knows? It could be anything you want, more or less, as long as it's producing real value to the community, to the project. So it's just a matter of you kind of figuring out for yourself what you're good at, what your skill sets are, and kind of offering something to the treasury of a service that it can provide, and the treasury will make a determination of whether or not that's valuable or not, and if it is valuable, then how valuable is it?
All right, thank you.
And ecosystem projects as well. There's a lot of teams building in this space, right? THORSwap, DeFi Spot, all the wallets, XDeFi, like so many, right? But yeah, sorry to hear that. That's crazy. Hopefully you can get to the bottom of what happened. And good. Important to take security as important as possible. Hopefully you can get through that. That's a bummer. But yeah, let's move on to Austin.
Hey guys. Yeah, sorry to hear about that loss. And Chad, thanks for the time and updates here. I would love to hear a little bit more about the partnership strategy with regards to front-end apps and any kind of recent progress. A lot of the partnerships have really been mainly related to kind of grassroots organizations, newer wallets, exchanges. Have there been kind of any more mature wallets, exchanges, or custodians that you've been in discussions with integrating THORChain, and any that you're really excited about?
I will have to be a bit careful about this. The short answer is yes, but the longer answer is I can't go longer. Like there are projects that we're talking to that I think will be very, very beneficial for not only their ecosystem but ours as well. But I can't get into who that is and when that's happening. All I can say is that there's a lot of conversations happening simultaneously with a lot of different projects, and that these things take a long period of time for them to kind of iron out in many respects, because we approach some wallet, and I'll just take Ledger for a random example. They have their own dev cycle. They have their own roadmap ahead of them. They already have their own demands from their community about what they want to add and build, or features or whatever. And so we're kind of throwing at them another feature, which is, a bunch of work as well. And so they have to determine, how much of a priority is THORChain within their ecosystem. And so these things will probably take months and months and months and months and months. Some will be quicker, like smaller projects will probably be quicker because they're kind of more agile. But like larger projects, like a Ledger, for example, would be a lot more time to get there. So it's something that Nine Realms and the team is working on actively for integrations and such. But I don't expect it to have anything happen anytime like in the near future. all these things are going to take at minimum, 3 months if it's fast, and then probably 6 or 9 or even 12 months if it's slow, right? So it is a long kind of process. So I wouldn't get too excited about it right now, but it is something that is actively being worked on. Something we'll see hopefully throughout the year.
Sure, that makes sense. Just looking for that extra alpha there, Chad. I'm just wondering how the process goes with integrating new chains. Have you been like in discussions with leadership at Luna on seeding the Luna or UST LP recently?
Once again, I'm not sure what I am able or not able to say publicly at this time. I'll say more generically, I'll say that whenever we're trying to add a new chain as a protocol, we typically try to reach out to influencers and project leads and foundations and whatever it is within that ecosystem to kind of garner support, both on providing liquidity to the new assets of this new chain, whatever, as well as get them to start getting their community aware of THORChain and why it's adding integration with THORChain is a big deal for them, and trying to pull in a new community into our own community and kind of expand our community size to engulf that community as well. And I think THOReau is actually probably the best example we've seen thus far of success in this sense. That we've really expanded, the Rune community into the Runatics community in a sense, and that's really beneficial for the project as a whole, which is great. So I can't get into specifics about THOReau or any particular project, I don't think, but it is something we actively try to accomplish or actively try to garner for on every chain that we try to integrate with.
Okay. Yeah, totally makes sense. Appreciate that. And I guess since I'm up here, maybe one more question. I've been looking into Stargate. It seems like a quasi-competitor to THORChain. I was wondering, Chad, if you've looked into Stargate at all, if you had any kind of overall thoughts. I don't think they can integrate with Bitcoin and the like, but are using the layer 0 messaging system to kind of accomplish what they're working on. But wanted to hear if you've maybe talked with that team and what your thoughts on their project versus THORChain is.
Yeah, I mean it's got some things about it that are kind of interesting, I guess. Generally speaking, whenever I look at one of these projects, they typically are one of two things. There's more, but most of them fall in one or two categories. One is either it's centralized and it's run the team runs all the nodes, for example, or B, it is on like a half solution that it only supports a subset of what THORChain can support. If THORChain wanted to do what Stargate is doing now, that's something we probably could have done as a team a long time ago. Like probably we could have launched something like that over a year and a half ago, or even maybe even 2 years ago. Actually, integrating EVM to EVM is like relatively a low hanging fruit. As the consensus part of it is kind of abstracted away for you. You don't have to worry about that stuff. So in THORChain's design, we thought more holistically about how do you properly solve this problem rather than how do you kind of solve it, right? So I mean, it's good to have them out there, and I'll be looking forward to seeing their progress for sure. And I wish the project well and all these kind of things. I mean, it's good to have more than one methodology of moving from chain A to chain B, which is great. But I think what they're trying to accomplish is interesting, but kind of stops short to accomplishing what the crypto community needs in general, right? We tend not to think about what we can accomplish in this moment, but rather what can we accomplish from more of a visionary perspective, right? Of what is the actual, throw everything else away. Just start from the mentality of what is the problem we actually need to solve? Okay, integrating every chain across the entire planet with every other chain across the entire planet. That's really what needs to be solved, right? Rather than somebody else coming along and saying, I guess we need to move between chains, but this is a really easy way of doing a half solution. And that's just a different way of thinking about the problem than what we've gone through. And so we've spent a lot more time and energy innovating many different forms of technology, implementing threshold signatures in a way that's never been done before, and all sorts of like solutions that we've needed to come up with to solve the larger scale of the issue. So whatever that is, like something like Stargate can do or accomplish, whatever layer 0 can do or accomplish, including just messages back and forth between chains, we can totally do that as a project. And we can totally do it in a way that supports more or less every chain underneath the sun. And so how are those two things going to compete in the end? I don't know. To me, it seems fairly obvious.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I agree with your stance there. And one of the things I like about THORChain is definitely the long-term perspective and to the problems at hand. So that all sounds great. Appreciate the time again, guys. Congrats.
Also, even like any sort of competitor, if you will, that only solves part of the problem can potentially be an integration for THORChain too, to just widen their customer base, have like they can make more revenue on the affiliate fees for those additional swaps that they could integrate. So can definitely see like a lot of overlap, kind of ties in with like the aggregation, stuff like that. So, and also just it's such a big space that can support many, but I haven't seen anyone solving it in the THORChain first principles, no externalities sort of way. Also, shout out to THORChain Bull. He's had some amazing threads on this sort of subject, and some talking about layer 0 stuff specifically. So yeah, shout out to him. Let's go to THORChimp has been up here, and then THORChimp first.
Hey guys, sorry, I've been in and out of this. I know there's been a lot of Haven Monero talk. I'm just curious. So again, I apologize if this has already been answered, but I'm just curious if the Chad, you and the core development team have had conversations regarding like unwanted regulatory eyes coming onto the project, adopting, privacy chains that I think in the eyes of regulators aren't favorable. Obviously, as of today, I know this probably isn't a popular maybe topic or stance to take in this community, but just curious if the dev team has any stance on that, or even if any conversations have happened. I mean, I'm aware that the development team is chain agnostic, but just curious on this sort of one issue.
The one issue of regulation around privacy chains?
Yeah, bringing unwanted, regulatory eyeballs onto the project by adopting, privacy chains. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like whenever if you were if you were the FBI, for example, and you were an NSA or some 3-character federal agency, what you would want from that exchange is knowledge of what's happening, right? Of what transactions are going where, to what address, and this information. And I'm sure that, I'm not sure, I'm guessing that regulators have come to Coinbase or whatever that's selling XMR or whatever, and kind of like, let us know, give us some information, whatever. That I would not be, I don't know if that's happening or not, but I would not be surprised, because it seems like an obvious thing to me to some degree. And if some regulator wants to do that with THORChain, great. The information is already public. You don't need to talk to me or any other devs or anybody in the community even. You can just hit the Midgard server and get all the information you want, right? Where it becomes a problem is if a regulator said, this decentralized exchange needs to KYC these addresses before allowing exchange trades to happen. In which case, there's nothing I can do to help them with that. They can come to me and they can knock on my door or whatever, but there's nothing I can do to help them. I can't do that. It's not that I won't. It's that I can't. And those are two very different words. They mean very different things. And so if they wanted to try to tell me, hey, you have to put KYC on, hell, I could go ahead and write the code to add KYC to THORChain and say, hey, nodes, go ahead and adopt this KYC thing. And the nodes probably would not listen to me, and nor should they listen to me in this context, right? So they can go ahead and do whatever they want, but in the end, they're going to have to convince the community to adopt it, which would be a very difficult task to do, for sure.
Got it. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks for the question. Let's go to Infornet.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, I'm very excited about the THORChain project. Just a question regarding any consideration for integrate other crypto like Wave, for example.
What was the example you said?
Wave exchange from Wave, the Neutrino project.
So I don't know about that specifically, but there's kind of like a chain agnostic approach with which chains get added. Basically, anything that is, high amounts of liquidity, high amounts of activity, is like very much at the top of the list for next integrations. Kind of like a prioritized approach to what would have the most impact. You can see if you in the dev Discord, there's propose a chain section where you might see if there's been discussion around that, or you could even throw in a proposal for it to be considered, and also to kind of see like the activity and progress and discussion around all the various chains that are potentially coming. Yeah. Chad, any other thoughts on that, or does that basically cover it?
No, I think you pretty much got it right there.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. Let's go to KC.
Yeah, hey guys. We live in a mobile world. Do you guys know if XDeFi is going to get an app at some point?
Yeah, I know that they're working on it. I believe their first, you can find the roadmap, but I believe there's supposed to be their first version of their mobile app within maybe the next month or two. But I think that won't have full functionality of like everything you see right now yet. But I know that they're working towards that. So, I would expect to see that, sometime this year. I don't know. It's probably on their timeline, but for sure.
Yeah, I figure once they get that out, I think they're going to be a hot project, and hopefully they'll, take over MetaMask or something, get rid of that crap.
Totally. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be great. There is already right now, there's Thor Wallet. So Thor Wallet is like,
I use that right now. It's great.
Solid. Yeah. And there's definitely going to be other ones coming out in that space as well. But yeah, excited for XDeFi too.
And also native Rune. I mean, that's only on, like no exchanges have native Rune, right? Or trade native Rune or anything like that.
Basically, no. I think crypto.com is like a weird gray area where they had it and then they phased it out. And now I think you can send native in, but BEP2 out, or maybe vice versa. I forget. It's like some too sure, but
I'm just, I obviously I bought Rune on Thor's on the app on Thor Wallet, and just because of it's a good arbitrage opportunity. It's obviously a lot cheaper than it is on the regular market. So I definitely didn't. I want to take advantage of that opportunity, but I just was curious, if there's anybody else that carried the native version of Rune.
Yeah, so this was kind of discussed in the last week or so. There were some tweets even from the THORChain account talking about not specifics, but sounding like at mainnet or close after mainnet that there's intent from some of the exchanges to switch over. So sounds like that problem will kind of sort itself out. Like if you are holding on an exchange, it'll probably be kind of taken care of for you, most likely. But even so, like you're better off in your situation, just kind of doing it now, in my opinion. You're holding the real Rune. You can actually put it to work. You could put it in, you could pair it with some Bitcoin if you're holding Bitcoin, throw it in the liquidity pool, stuff like that. So
is the best way to provide liquidity to pair the two assets, or is it better to do single-sided liquidity?
So if you're doing single-sided liquidity, at least the way I view it is that you're selling half your position to whatever the other thing is, right? So you have to consider that as just like based on as a trade or like a price action sort of speculation, right?
I don't know which way it's moving, yeah.
Right. So because every LP, whether you add asymmetrically or symmetrically, is symmetrical. So either way, it's 50-50 exposure. So it's, however you go into it, that's kind of just up to your decision of like what funds you're allocating to that. But I would say, like, generally, at least the way I think about it and like to explain it, if you're kind of starting out, is, just think of it symmetrical and just pair with like an asset that you want, that you're already holding anyways, or you want exposure to anyways. Then it's kind of a no-brainer. Otherwise, you're kind of making like a decision to basically do a trade of some sort. Like either you're taking your Bitcoin and you're essentially buying half Rune, or you're taking your Rune and you're essentially selling half your Rune. It's kind of like it's not really like a fair comparison to compare asymmetrical versus symmetrical, at least the way I view it, because either way it's symmetrical. So,
yeah, I don't know. I know Bancor does that, no impermanent loss or whatever they say, but you got to hold it for 100 days. Is that kind of where you guys got your 100-day thing from? Or like, how does that work to not have any impermanent loss, or does it not protect you from impermanent loss, I guess, in this pool?
No, we saw the Bancor design and thought it was a good design. And then we did some kind of number crunching on the behavior of what was the time single chain castnet to see if it actually would work out in our case as well. And it in fact did. So we decided to kind of just take that idea of 100-day thing that Bancor is doing and said, we're going to offer it as well.
Okay, cool. I really appreciate the answers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and just on that, just to note that the impermanent loss protection is from the 50-50 start point, no matter how you add. So if you add from just Rune or just Bitcoin, you're not guaranteed to withdraw exactly that much of that one asset, because you're still exposed to the other side during it. So the snapshot for what you're protected against is that initial 50-50, however, whichever way you actually add it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't know exactly how they do. I wish I would have known more about your stuff when it came out, but obviously that was, it was a little bit later on, and when everything started getting really big, and I didn't know about it, but otherwise I would have jumped in your pools right away and stayed out of Bancor's. But yeah, I guess I got to wait 100 days now.
Nice. Yeah. Also, as far as like kind of playing out these scenarios, there's a calculator. There's a few. I think there's one in THORChain or in LP University as well. But there's also on THORyield.com. There's like an interactive calculator where you can basically like I'm putting in this much of this much of that. I expect the prices to be this and this at this date or whatever. And you can kind of like play out a million different scenarios to get a feel for, all the various scenarios.
What was that stuff. Thor website again?
THORyield.
THORyield. All right.
Yeah, THORyield.com. It's also where you can like track your active LP positions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
For sure. Thomas.
Yeah. Hey guys. So quick question for me. So on THORyield, like, what can you guys walk me through the difference between the LP versus HODL percentage versus the total earnings?
So total earnings would factor in, I'm not looking at it, so I'm thinking off memory a bit, but total earnings would factor in price movement of the two assets, right? So your total earnings, are going to reflect whether or not the assets you were in, like the price movements of those assets. Whereas LP versus HODL is like really what matters, right? Because that's what's saying, if you had just held these two assets versus LP, here's how much better or worse you are doing versus having just held, not just like leaving aside price movement. So for me, LP versus HODL is what I think is like the key thing to look at in terms of like how the LP is actually treating you, aside from just like, volatility of the markets. And LP versus HODL is also like the best way to kind of get an understanding of the impermanent loss protection, because that's what you're actually being protected up against, is your HODL situation, right? So if you're worse off than if you had just held, then if that's negative, then that's basically your impermanent loss after factoring in the rewards. If you're like down on impermanent loss but up more on rewards, then ILP wouldn't have to kick in because you're still better off that way. So basically, yeah, if that's positive, then you're already in the green.
Got it. Because like, I guess where I got thrown off was like, if you go on like the dashboard, right, it says that the Rune BTC should give me around like a 24-25% yield. But I've had my money in this pool for only about like a few weeks to a month now. And I'm already at like 12%. So like, I don't know, just like mathematically, I was just like, whoa, how am I even getting returns these high? And so just to confirm, if I were to pull my funds right now, then would I be getting the LP versus HODL rate?
Well, if you withdrew right now, it would just be whatever your position is currently worth. Yeah. So that should just be, it should just show your total position value basically. Or you could even just like connect back to THORswap or whatever you're using. And like, if you pretend like you're going to withdraw, you can just see exactly what you would be withdrawing, but it should match whatever you're showing there. So basically, like, you know, all this stuff about ILP wouldn't, like, you're in the green, like you're doing well. None of this would even apply unless like massive IL kicked in over the next, you know, couple months or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're crushing.
Okay, gotcha. So, and then one last question for me. So that dashboard APY, like, how is that calculated?
So it's Chad, I forget if you said the exact date. Is it 10 days or 2-week move average? I forget.
I thought it was 7-day moving average, but I could be wrong.
Something like that. I need to double check on that as well. But basically, yeah, it's like, so that APY, you know, it fluctuates because these rewards are like sustainable, right? Like they're from the actual activity of the pools. So if there's a lot of swap activity, then suddenly that's a lot of fees that are going back into the pool. So what you're seeing on there is like an average of whether it's 7, 14 days, whatever, I forget at the moment, but you're seeing that retroactive average, which is again dependent on how much activity there was. So you can kind of see that fluctuate over time. Also, that reminds me, Chad, you mentioned a really good point on the space yesterday, which is that when these new pools go live for Luna and UST, because it's showing like a backwards looking average, you might be seeing like a really low APY or something initially because it's factoring in like the non-active times. So just to be aware of that it'll kind of take some time for it to catch up and have like an average APY as the pool fills up, as activity starts, stuff like that.
And the other thing that people should be aware of is like that APY is looking at what the pool is earning in terms of rewards over the last like 7 days, whatever, but it does not take into account what your personal IL is that you've experienced personally, because like everybody who has an IL will experience different forms of IL depending upon at what time they got in or what ratio of asset versus room they supply to the network. And so it can't really account for everybody's IL because everybody's going to have a different amount of IL that they're personally experiencing. So that APY, I'm pretty sure that it's just the yield that the network has produced. But if it didn't maintain for a whole year, which that may not, and you were staked that whole year, you might not get that 30% or 20%. You might get less than that depending upon how much IL the price change of the Rune asset versus the other asset has kind of moved back and forth. But just so people are aware, they're like if there's a price movement away from each other and then towards each other at the same amount, then you then experience zero impermanent loss. So like just because when you experience permanent loss, it is impermanent. That's where the word impermanence comes from. And so if the pricing goes back as a ratio to each other, then you remove that IL that you experience. So it all depends upon when you get in and when you get out that kind of determines how much IL you actually experience in the end.
Right. Yeah. Great clarification. Basically, like that rate would only be exactly that rate if everything moved exactly together, right? Like in reality, you're experiencing some IL from the price fluctuations independently, but that's kind of just the rate if everything was just kind of moving effectively sideways or together. Yeah.
Right.
Chad, sorry to cut you guys off, but Chad, when you're talking, the section that you're talking is getting lost. I don't know if it's me or is everybody else that cannot hear you, but half the things that you were saying
No, I
the
can't
whole
hear him either. It cuts out.
Yeah,
so
half the things we didn't hear.
So this is a weird Twitter bug. You're actually hearing it that way because you're a speaker, but I'm 99% sure that the listeners are not hearing it that way. So it's kind of just like a weird Twitter bug thing. And in the recording, it actually sounds fine. So yeah, if you're done with questions and you drop back to a listener, you should probably hear the robot voice go away. But I'm hearing the same thing. Yeah, sometimes I'm struggling to hear Chad's answers, but pretty sure that the audience hears it okay.
Got you. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Let's go to Jaeger.
Hi guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
So I've got a question just regarding like layer one swap times, and I guess my perspective is through THORswap, so I don't know if it varies on other interfaces, but can we ever expect like a layer one swap to be faster, or does it always depend on confirmation times of other chains?
Yeah, so you're doing like real on-chain transactions. So for the L1 swaps, like you're always beholden to that chain's speed and that chain's gas, right? Because you're doing like real transactions on those chains. So that I wouldn't expect to necessarily change. However, the launch of synths in just the last couple of weeks is totally a solution to that, and kind of like really the main sort of value prop of offering that. Because you can you can mint something into the synth world. And if you are more of like an active trader, those settle as fast as Rune and as cheap as Rune because they're THORChain native assets. So, if you're trying to just get price exposure, or you're day trading, or even you're doing ARBs, stuff like that, get like going into the synths, trading within there. And then eventually when you want to redeem out, then you're kind of like, again, if you're redeeming out to Bitcoin, that's going to take Bitcoin time. But if you're swapping between synth ETH and synth Bitcoin all day long, you're not waiting for Bitcoin and you're not paying ETH gas. So that's definitely a way to.
And if you mint a synth, you're still beholden to the native chain's confirmation times as well.
That's right. But the cool thing with synths is they're technically minted from Rune. So you can actually just mint from anything. For example, like if you want synthetic BTC, you don't have to mint it from Bitcoin. You could just mint it from Rune. You could mint it from Doge or BNB, really whatever you want. So you can kind of go in and out of synths like from whatever you want, if that makes sense.
So in that case, what would be like, let's just say you come to an interface like THORswap and you want to trade as quickly as possible from like Bitcoin to ETH using synthetics. Like what would be the best route to do so, like minimizing like confirmation times and stuff?
Well, you could just take like Rune, for example, or really any fast asset like BNB or something, mint synthetic Bitcoin, trade to synthetic ETH. Now that ETH is 1-to-1 redeemable for ETH. If you want to get real ETH out, then you're still going to have to do like the burn process, which on that, then that will be a real ETH transaction. So there's ETH gas and ETH times on that step. But if you were just trying to like hold for price exposure or do some type of trade, you could just like stay in the synth for whatever period of time and then redeem out to whatever else.
And my last question, since these synthetics would be, I guess, like on a THORChain standard, if you will, would it ever be possible in the future for other exchanges to offer just synthetic trading, where I could go buy a synth from maybe like a Coinbase and then send it over and then have quick swaps and stuff?
Yeah, I think it's definitely theoretically possible, right? To have like an app that's just like we were talking about this on another space, and it would actually, in a way, self-custody, having decentralization, but you're kind of having like all of the benefit of a centralized exchange because you have cheap and fast trades. So yeah, I mean, definitely could see, like, I don't think there's anything really built like that right now, but you could definitely see stuff like that built around synths.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. Let's go to Crypto Nest and then back to KC. Cryptonist, you there? Might not be able to unmute yourself. Let's go to KC for now. By the way, if you're on desktop, you might not be able to speak from there. So maybe that's what's going on, or you stepped out.
Is there anything I'm missing out on doing my swaps on Thor Wallet, or should I be doing things on the THORswap website?
So
is there any benefit or negative thing to using the actual wallet app?
It's just personal preference, really. I mean, all of these various apps, including THORswap, are independent teams from the core THORChain team. Okay. Like there's no front-facing app from THORChain itself. So as far as using different ones, it's really just like, which one has the feature sets you're looking for. Like, for example, for that comparison, Thor Wallet is for mobile users, right? THORswap is more for like
PC users and stuff.
Yeah, desktop, more advanced users, stuff like that.
I just wasn't sure if the the fees and stuff are any different or
so
anything.
that is a good point. I believe as of right now, so basically every interface can add like a affiliate fee, which is separate from like the core THORchain like fees that you're seeing, like the slippage fee and the gas fees. Like that's just the core THORchain stuff. They all use the same pools, but the interface level or the app can put like a small affiliate fee on each transaction, which they'll basically all be doing. But as of like literally today, I'm pretty sure Thor Wallet does have their fee enabled, and THORswap does not yet, but will soon have a fee enabled. So that could be like a small factor in your decision.
Yeah.
But even then, like THORswap's going to add a fee too, and then that's going to like these fees like kind of go back to the stakeholders of those tokens, of those apps and stuff like that. So yeah,
there's more assets as well on THORswap, right?
Should be the same. I mean, they're just using the THORchain. I don't think
they don't have synthetics on here, right? On the wallet. I don't think at all.
I don't know if they've launched that. I know that
it's native and it's synthetic, right, or not, or that's different.
It would definitely be like somewhere in the UI. It should explain if it's a synth or not. But I know that they tweeted. I saw something that I just don't know if it's launched yet. But they're definitely going to be doing synths.
If
not
already.
Got
a lot more building to do, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Appreciate the answer. Thanks.
For sure. Cool. Let's go to Sharab.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're good.
Thanks. Yeah, so I have a few questions. So the first thing I wanted to ask is, I use this THORyield interface where I can see what my LPs are looking like, fees earned and stuff like that. But sometimes the display is buggy, and I think now is one of those times. So is there? Okay, I won't ask if it's possible, but is there an easy way for a noob LP guy to, query THORchain or whatever relevant chains to find what my actual positions are looking like and the fees that I've earned at any given point in time? That's one. The other is, I mean, it's a bit long-term thing, but I'll ask anyway since I have all of you guys here. So earlier on in this conversation, Chad was saying that the decision to go from 100 odd nodes to whatever 200 and in excess, whenever that happens, is right now it lies with those node operators. What's the long-term sort of governance going to look like? Is this something that's discussed already? Who are going to be the stakeholders? Are LP guys going to have equal voting power? So LP node operators and perhaps even the guys who are using the pool, the people who conduct swaps on them. Is there some thought already on this sort of long-term structure to THORchain? Who's going to decide the future course of this project? And yeah, I think these two for now. Thanks. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take the first one, and then Chad, you could take the governance question. On THORyield, so THORyield is put out by the THORswap team, and I'm definitely seeing the behind the scenes, and they're very much aware that there's been bugs, and they're working super hard on that. The mobile versions, I believe, have already been updated. And might be probably working better than the web app version at this moment, I believe. I think that is still almost coming any day, hopefully, some fixes to the web version. But the mobile ones just had like a total revamp. And also like with V2 coming and stuff like that, like the whole thing is going to be totally redone and much improved. So they're very much aware of it. And it needs to... There's still room for improvement, stuff like that, but the team's on it for sure. So should be seeing improvements there. Also, like just to kind of note, like you can always kind of see your value. Like if you just go to your pool position and like see what's withdrawable, you can kind of just like calculate how you're doing there if you just compare that to where you entered. Always an option. I know it's not really like a fancy dashboard or something like that, but and then you'd be able to figure out like, oh, have I experienced IL? What's going on? So stuff like that. But yeah, Chad, on the governance question.
Yeah, governance is a kind of an interesting topic in general. Whenever I see governance, vast majority of the time, it's almost always a complete calamity. Like it's just, nobody's really voting in the end.
Can I interrupt at this stage?
Yeah,
sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think you're muted now, but did you have something to add? Maybe just go on with the answer.
Anyways, so I think the mentality that the devs around this project had is just to do a minimalist governance mentality. Like the less governance we can have is probably the better kind of approach. And so long term there won't be.
Yeah, thanks. Okay.
I think it's just Twitter bugs. But if you're not able to hear his answer, just come back to the recording a little bit after this, and it'll sound normal in the recording if that's the problem. But let's just keep going.
Yeah, so it's more about trying to get a governance minimal perspective, and so the intention right now, and obviously this can change in the future, is that the nodes will kind of maintain the network and kind of vote on how many validators will be, or what chains get added, or whatever else. But we don't want to get into too much of a situation where there's just like endless conversation. Nobody really shows up to vote, and it creates like a division in the community. Like the whole like if you look at Juno, what's happening now in the Juno community, it's just this complete weird calamity. Everybody's kind of yelling at some whale that just it's just holding tokens. Like it becomes like a witch hunt, and even in some cases, it just becomes almost ridiculous. So we try to push towards a governance minimalist perspective rather than some sort of like DAO design.
Cool. Yeah, great answer. Makes sense. Let's see. Crash. Good. How are you?
Great. First thing I want to say, I've been in crypto for a long time. I absolutely love Rune. Same thing with Luna. Big DeFi fan, big techie. Been in the whole IT game since early '90s, and I love everything that's going on.
It's because of the reason that Chad THOReau was mentioning that all the speakers, they're not able to get audio very well. I didn't hear much of what was just said. Yeah.
Sorry, I think you just have a bit of a delay too. But if you just drop off from speaker, you should hear it okay again, and it'll be okay in the recording. So just you can refer back to catch that answer again. But yeah, thanks for the question. Sorry, go ahead, Crash.
All right, no problem. Sweet. So I just had two brief questions regarding the LPs. I've done a lot of liquidity pool through multiple tokens in the past, and I love what Rune is doing. I was reading a Medium post that said, asymmetrically versus symmetrically, and I understand the 3 times total value locked with Rune. My question was more so when we deposited asymmetrically. I read in the Medium post that we have the option to withdraw either one of those tokens from that liquidity pool, even though we deposited it asymmetrically. We can withdraw asymmetrically either coin. So if I deposit 500 Rune with BTC, I have the option to withdraw whatever the Rune value is at the moment of withdrawal, or BTC. I want to just verify and make sure I had that correct, because when I attempt to do that on THORswap, it's only showing me that I can withdraw whatever I deposited in that pool. And then the second question is it possible to enable, or maybe I just don't have the appropriate rights or I'm doing it wrong, but to go ahead and add the second LP token after I initially added asymmetrically? Because I didn't realize when I first added it asymmetrically that there were discrepancies with the way everything was balanced and the way I can withdraw both. But it's not allowing me because it says I already have that current LP set up. So those are my two questions.
Yeah, so the first thing is, I think you either misread that Medium article, or the Medium article itself is incorrect. But if you add later on, in part because the network doesn't have a Thor address to associate with your BTC in a sense. And if it did offer the ability for somebody to do that, it would be, potentially a security risk, right? Where I added BTC to my position, and then Chad THOReau is being a malicious, actor, and he somehow is able to convince the network that his Thor address is blah, 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 and steal all my LP positions. So for that reason, when you add a position, the first time you take a position on the network as an LP position, the network usually freezes what the addresses are associated with that position for the future of that LP position. So you can't change your Thor address or change your BTC address or any of these things. The only way you can do that is if you withdraw 100%. So you basically delete your LP position entirely and then come back in a second time with new addresses or whatever. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Thanks so much.
One little tip on that Mogarky, shout out to THORswap engineer, threw out yesterday, was that if you want to add asymmetrically, but you want the option to withdraw in either direction, you can, at least on THORswap, you can do this. There's like the advanced mode in the swap panel, and you can set it so that you're adding symmetrically, but not actually 50-50. So for example, you could add like, 1 Bitcoin and like $5 of Rune or something. And then that way, now THORChain does have both addresses. You're obviously still adding asymmetrically, basically, but at least now you have the option to withdraw in either direction. So if that somehow like played into your strategy, like that is a way of doing it.
Absolutely. That's what I was looking for. That's sweet. Beautiful. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, just hit the gear, like the little gear in the top right on the swap panel, and go to advanced.
Yep, you got it. Appreciate it.
Cool. Let's go to Cosmos Fan and then back to Ahil.
Hi guys, do you hear me all right?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I like a lot THORChain and what's its value proposition, but I just have some trouble understanding some of the things, because I think that's the value added of THORChain. It tries to differentiate itself from the wrapped tokens, from, for example, REN or whatever. And it seems like the synthetics is something close to that. So I wanted to know what's the real difference between it. At some point, it's kind of a wrapped token, the synthetics. And my second question was regarding the aggregation of the dexes. For me, switching between native tokens, of course, the first good things is, of course, the security. But again, there are dApps that are trying to go multi-chain, and one of the value for someone from one chain to go to another is to use another dApp. So what do you see in the future in terms of dApps trying to go multi-chain versus THORChain trying to I think you get my point, because at some point, if the dApps go multi-chain, the value of THORChain will only be the security of either chain that we are using. I don't know if you get my point, but this is our 3 questions.
So, sorry, what was the first question? And we'll come back to that one. What was the first question again?
Sorry, could you just repeat the first part again, Cosmo? The first part of the question.
So the first part is, it looks like the synthetics are very similar to the wrapped tokens. For me, it looks like because the first proposition of THORChain is to have native swap, and it differentiates itself from the wrapped tokens.
But, right. So just like how a synthetic is fundamentally different than a wrapped asset is kind of
exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So a wrapped asset is an asset that is collateralized by the token that it's wrapping, right? And so a wrapped BTC is obviously collateralized by an actual BTC Bitcoin, right? A synthetic asset is comprised of is collateralized by an asset that is not necessarily the same asset as the token that it's wrapping. So a synthetic on THORChain is collateralized by 50% of it is collateralized by Rune, and 50% is collateralized by Bitcoin for the synthetic Bitcoin coin, for example. And then the derived asset that's coming out into the future is more like Synthetic's design, one you reference you, where it is collateralized by Rune, and in Synthetics, it's also, those are collateralized by the SNX token. And so it's a different mechanism that is a different methodology of collateralization. And they all it might sound like a better idea from on its face value of, having BDC be the collateralization of a BDC, blah, blah, blah. And that makes some sense at the face value. But the problem with that is if you do it that way, there's no way to economically secure that asset, because the security of whatever thing that is securing it, the amount of money they have at stake will always be completely decoupled and detached from the wrapped BDC or whatever the wrapped asset is that you're kind of custodying for somebody. And so there's just a matter of time before the value of the Bitcoin that they're securing is worth a lot more money than the token they're using to secure that network, whatever that network might be. So it always requires trust of some centralized entity for wrapped tokens to exist, which is why they're just like, for me, they're just like always like a non-starter. But because a synthetic token that THORChain is using, where it's collateralized by Rune itself, we can economically ensure that the value of the asset is correct, and that the security of the network will always be greater than the asset that is being secured, right? And so because I can do that, it can make that economic assurance. It's a fundamentally much better design. Does that make sense?
Sorry, I have the same problem as the previous speaker. I hit Chad very correctly, but you, THORFi, I will refer back to the recording, as Chad said.
Yeah,
I can. Yeah,
it was getting even a little more choppy. I don't know if there's anything you can try on your end, but I'm pretty sure it's okay in the recording. But yeah, kind of just a bummer of Twitter Spaces. But yeah,
no. Yeah, no problem. Just regarding the second question, I will refer back to the first question later on. But regarding the second question, for me, one of there are two value propositions in changing the chains. One of them is relying on the security of whatever chain we would like BTC or Ethereum or whatever. But the second one is to be able to use the dApps that are in Ethereum or Solana or whatever. But as we see, maybe it's just a feeling because I'm new to the space, but I see like a lot of dApps trying to go cross chains. Like for example, Anchor now launched on Avalanche, and they also have Terra. So it's they're trying to do the same proposition over multiple chains. So how do you see that compared to the value proposition you're offering? Because it's if all the dApps have value on every chain, then the value of Rune of THORChain, the proposition of THORChain will be less perceptible, if I might say. I don't know if you got my point.
So do you mean like because you're saying like if you can just natively use a dApp on whatever chain you're on, then you're saying that would interesting. Yeah. I mean, I suppose that's a factor, at least a little bit, but I would say like the bull side is probably stronger, which is that, THORChain like allows these apps to go cross chain in a lot of cases, right? Like there's going to be so many, potential integrations and stuff like that, that I would imagine that largely outweighs that. But, yeah, I don't know. Chad, do you have additional thoughts on
that? Hopefully people can hear me okay, because I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but yeah, like it's even if you do the thing that you're suggesting, you still need something to be the mechanism to be able to communicate across chain, right? To like we've talked about the idea of like somebody having a Bitcoin wallet and then being able to stake into the Thor staking mechanism on Ethereum without ever actually owning an OX address or Ethereum or even Thor tokens directly. And so you can actually like theoretically send in some Bitcoin. It acquires Thor token on your behalf and stakes it. And then when you want to unstake it later and swap it back to Bitcoin, you can without ever really touching anything else on any other chain. That could happen one day. I'm not sure how useful it is really, what kind of problem that really is solving in a manner of speaking. But at some level, when you want to communicate across chain, there needs some mechanism to do so. And in my opinion, THORChain is the only one out there that offers that holistically.
Sorry, Chad, I still can't hear you. But anyway, thank you very much for the answer. I will refer back to the audio, to the recording.
Cool. Yeah. Go ahead, Ahil.
Hey, yeah, I don't want to keep dwelling on my shit day too much longer. But I'm just trying to, and I mean, like this was the Thor wallet was on like a warm wallet. I mean, it was a hot wallet, but it was a phone I wiped out. I hadn't used for anything else. And so I mean, I don't think like a keylogger was it. I don't think a phishing link was it. I'm trying to think like, is it possible that Thor wallet keeps the key seed phrase and doesn't delete it? Or I know that we're moving towards decentralization. Like, is it another possibility that, you know, like node operators can change accounts on the blockchain? Because I was holding native Rune, I wasn't holding another asset. And I mean, ideally, Chad T, if you could answer that, and Chad D, if you can just talk a little slower, that might help with the robot voice, just so I can get better insight as to different attack vectors.
Yeah. I mean, again, just like, sorry to hear the situation. I mean, on the security side, I feel like Chad B would definitely have better answers than me on that stuff. But I mean, I would imagine it's completely impossible to just like change balances, stuff like that. But you know, the Thor wallet side, you know, I don't know. Like, I think you really are going to have to see if Thor wallet support can help you out on that. I just don't really know too much else what I have to offer on that.
Hopefully people can hear me okay. I'll try to talk slower. Yeah, then obviously the network doesn't allow people to just, you know, or node operators to be able to manipulate funds or manipulate transactions or anything like this. Obviously, if that transaction exists, then it was cryptographically signed with your private key. So if you didn't give away your seed phrase, most likely, I'm just taking a stab in the dark here, is that you may have, you know, went to a phishing, you know, website and like put your key store in there with the password and gave up your information that way. I mean, yeah, that's my first guess or thought.
So you were saying you only you connected your Thor wallet with Wallet Connect, and that was a fresh seed phrase?
So I downloaded Thor wallet. I created a fresh seed phrase, and then the only interfaces I used, I connected that Thor wallet with, was the Thor chads to see like my ranking, and like I confirmed that was the official website, and then I was just doing swaps, within Thor wallet. And I think once I transferred it to my Trust wallet, and I transferred it back once Trust wallet was taken down from the App Store. But since then, that's like I've only logged on to THORchads and done swaps natively within the Thor wallet.
Yeah. I'm just not too sure. I mean, hopefully we can get somebody that kind of knows more blockchain forensics to kind of dig into the situation and try to sort that out. I definitely think, again, like Thor wallet support in this case, since it sounds like you're almost entirely only using Thor wallet. But yeah, again, sorry to hear, but yeah, I don't really know what else we can kind of do at the moment. Yeah.
So just the curiosity, is there like security differences between like are we relying on the teams of Trust Wallet or the teams of Thor Wallet for security? Like, how is the key phrase created and then ensure that's deleted? Is there like
Yeah, I mean, so that would depend on like the service, right? I mean, it should be generated like locally on the phone. I would imagine Thor Wallet never has the doesn't directly. It's not like they just like generate a seed phrase and like email it to you or whatever. Like it's should be generated on your own device and never leave it. And I definitely like it's just tough to say. Like, I think we'll have to kind of talk to Thor Wallet specifically on that. And I wouldn't want to, say that possibly that is their fault or something. Like, I don't know. Like I haven't heard of any other case like that. So it seems very unlikely that it would be like a problem specifically. But yeah, I think like, hardware wallet is definitely always kind of like the most secure way to go. I mean, obviously, even then you could sign a malicious transaction, but in this case, yeah, it's just really tricky to try to figure out. But yeah, again, sorry to hear, but yeah, I think we should just kind of continue this offline in Discord and support stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't want to scare people off. THORChain's doing it's a great project. It's doing some great work. It's extremely important to the ecosystem. But yeah, apologies.
Yeah, Engage. You've been waiting a while. You there?
Hey, hi guys. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so I have a like basic question from the overall strategy perspective. I know that we're focusing a lot on Ruin on this call, but when I look at utility tokens like X-Ruin, like governance tokens, those are like ERC20, right? So are these projects are like being worked on silos? Like, is there some sort of like holistic plan how you guys want to grow like the overall ecosystem? Because when I come from Terra, right, so there's one Terra address and everything works with one address, right? So how do we end up in this situation? My question is really from the overall strategy perspective, right? So when I look into Rune is a native token, and like THORSwap is a ERC20 token, right? So why that THORSwap is the ERC20 token and X-Ruin is the ERC20 token, and they are not really adopting the similar model of Terra ecosystem, right? As in when you guys are going to become the bigger player in this game, right? So I see that you guys are evolving this in the silos, right? So just trying to get some clarity on that.
Yeah. So any like project team, like ecosystem project team can do whatever they want, right? Because THORChain is kind of different than like a Terra or an Ethereum, which is kind of like a layer one smart contract. There's the synthetics and stuff like that, but there's no such thing as like launching a THORChain native token for like an external project, and probably won't be the case, or even to build like smart contract apps on THORChain itself. THORChain more like sits between everything, right? Like you could have like you said, some of the projects are ERC20s, some of the projects are CW20s. They could be really anything, and they could still be considered quote unquote THORChain ecosystem projects because they're interacting with THORChain in some way. They're using cross-chain L1 liquidity through the liquidity pools in some way, but they're not like built on THORChain like natively or internally or however you see it. But it's really just up to these projects how they want to launch, how they want to have their own token. Some choose ERC20s. I think a lot more will be choosing CW20s, or even anything else. I mean, even Bitcoin is a player in THORChain, right? So it's just a bit of a different organizational structure to kind of like comprehend than what we're used to, which is these like siloed things where everything kind of has to be built like in the Cosmos world or in the Ethereum world or in the Terra world. Whereas like with THORChain, it's you could build for THORChain from Ethereum, from Terra, from anything, and still be part of the ecosystem.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks.
For sure. Crypto, you've been waiting a while if you're there. Crypto with a bunch of numbers at the end, or maybe not. Analytic.
That guy's Gary Gensler, by the way.
Hey guys, big fan of THORChain. So on THORSwap, one of the things I've noticed is I've been trying to swap BTC, USDC or USDT for BTC. I'm experiencing a lot of slippage. So under $10,000, I think the slippage is 10,000 USDC. Say the slippage is like 0.2, 0.3%. But if you go above $20, $30, $40,000, it starts to ramp up quite rapidly, 1%, 2%, etc. I mean, how would you propose someone to swap a largish amount of BTC on the THORswap platform?
Well, so it's going to depend on the depth of each pool, right? Like, so you mentioned BTC, but then you mentioned USDT and USDC. So BTC is the deepest pool on THORChain, and if you're using THORswap, you're just interacting with the same THORChain pools, right? But you can kind of see like the liquidity depth, all of that sort of stats like on THORswap. So BTC is the deepest, so you should definitely be seeing the least slippage there, though it's going to depend what you're swapping to or from or whatever. But yeah.
So what would you recommend? Like, so say if the idea is to get to BTC eventually, what stable coin would you suggest swapping from?
Right.
I mean, if USDT, I see USDT liquidity is about 5 million, so it doesn't seem very deep.
Right.
Maybe I should be looking at the BUSD pool, which seems to be like 40 million or so. Maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
so currently your best bet for a stable swap is BUSD, and that's it's the deepest stablecoin pool. People use it because it's cheap and fast. This is part of why we're really excited for Terra, because a lot of us kind of suspect that UST will kind of take that spot. But right now it's been BUSD, in my personal opinion, just only because it's the cheap and fast stablecoin that's integrated. But so that's kind of your best bet as of right now. The other thing is that like you mentioned, the fee is amplified based on how much you're disrupting the pool. So while this you'd have to factor in gas if you're using a USDT or something like that. But if you're doing more small transactions, that could help you out.
No, understood. You can split it up, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? But so even to buy one BTC, you'll have to split it up like 4 or 5 times. But okay, but on the BUSD, I think that's a good choice. But it's a BEP2 token, so does that mean I guess it won't work? I've not used BUSD, but I assume that's not going to work from MetaMask, right? I'll have to take my USDC to Binance, convert it to BUSD into a BEP2 form, and then bring it over to THORChain.
Yeah, and then you'd have to factor in if that still makes sense with. Sorry, Cosmo, I'm going to mute. You've got some noise there. You'd have to factor in like the multiple transactions there, and make sure that's still kind of worthwhile for the savings. But so BEP2, for me, I use that with like XDeFi wallet, multi-chain wallet. It works really nicely with THORChain just because it has all chains. And so you wouldn't be able to do that with MetaMask, because just to note, this is Binance chain, not Binance Smart Chain. So it's BEP2, not BEP20. So that the addresses start in BNB, not 0x. And you'll need a tiny bit of BNB if you're doing a BUSD transaction, because the gas for any BEP2 is in BNB. So you'll need pennies of BNB in that wallet as well.
Okay, and where do you get BUSD? Is Binance? Is there? It's not on a DEX, right? You'll have to go to Binance for that. Is that right?
To be honest, I've never even used a Binance DEX. I'm not. It must be a thing, but I mean.
No, I mean to say I have to go to Binance centralized exchange for that. Not. I can't get BUSD elsewhere. Can I?
BUSD you can get on Binance.com or Binance.us, depending upon if you're American or not.
Centralized.
Or there's also a Binance DEX, which is Binance.org.
You can use the Trust wallet. So if you get the BEP20 version of BUSD, you can swap that in the Trust wallet for BEP2 version of BUSD. You can also use the Trust wallet on THORswap as well. So that's what I do if I want to go
Got
there.
it.
Yeah, that's the only place I know how to basically swap BEP20 BUSD, which is pretty available, to BEP2 BUSD in a decentralized way.
Okay. One other quick question, guys, is so if I'm trying to connect my ledger on THORswap, and say I select the Binance chain, it connects all right, but sorry, not Binance. I select the Bitcoin chain. It connects to the ledger all right, but it chooses a wallet. It chooses, say I have many Bitcoin wallets on my Ledger device. It just picks one. I don't get the choice to pick the wallet I'm interested in. I mean, is there like a default wallet that THORSwap automatically connects to? I don't know how it's picking the wallet out of many wallets I have on my Ledger. But if I wanted to ask THORSwap to pick the one I'm interested in, maybe say I've created a new wallet, there's no way to specify that. Am I doing something wrong?
You might be able to do it through the index number when you're connecting the ledger directly.
Okay.
But yeah, the reason for that, and maybe Chad can correct me if I'm wrong here, but because of like how UTXO chains are working, you're kind of like always moving to another wallet, right? Whereas with THORChain, like it has to be the same. It has to reuse an address because like say you add liquidity, like you need to be able to pull out to that same address. So yeah, you're right. Like THORSwap is like going to a default address each time to reuse that address. Whereas like you're like downstream on however many addresses. But yeah, I believe the index number would allow you to, though to be honest, yeah, I'm not a total expert on that part, but
yeah. So this is actually, it's not a requirement that it works the way that it works now. What you're referring to, and what sometimes you see on Ledger, which is a nice little feature, is something called hierarchically deterministic wallets. So what that basically means is that whenever you have an address in crypto space, you always start with a private key, which is commonly, your 12-word or 24-word mnemonic phrase. And then from that, you can generate what's called a pub key. And then from your pub key, you can generate a wallet address, right? But sometimes the way that you generate the wallet address, you can use a parameter. And so that's what they call hierarchical deterministic wallets. So a single private key could have access to, I forget the actual limitation of how many theoretically you could have. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it's like hundreds of thousands of different Bitcoin addresses or BNB addresses or any wallet any chain for that matter. And so it's possible for THORSwap or XDeFi to add the ability to do hierarchically deterministic wallets so that you have multiple addresses. And so that every time you do a swap, you're swapping to a BTC address that is a different BTC address every time, but still going to the same private key in a matter of speaking, which is what you kind of already see that in the Ledger's UI because it's a little bit more advanced and mature than the THORChain wallets are at this point.
Okay. Thanks. Look, I missed a lot of that, but I'll go back and listen to the recording. I think it's a Twitter issue.
By the way, I mean, I wasn't sure this is a Ledger issue, but if you use the XDeFi wallet, you have to like turn on that prioritize option. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like on the drop down hamburger menu, you prioritize it. And when you prioritize it, that one always gets selected until you unprioritize it. And so just an FYI. So like if I prioritize it and then I go to THORSwap or whatever, right? It will always, like, even if I choose MetaMask, it's going to choose XDeFi. So yeah, you would have to turn off the prioritize option on the XDeFi wallet for you to start using other wallet again.
Okay, great, thanks. And one final thing, sorry guys, so for newly acquired Rune on Binance, what is the best way to put it to use besides contributing it to a pool? Because I don't want to incur any impermanent loss, and I know there's protection over a period of time, but there is no single-sided staking. Is there anything to do with my Rune that I may have acquired, say on Binance, and bringing it over to THORSwap? Can I do anything with it right now, other than contributing to a two-sided pool?
Right. So first off, it sounds like you already know this, but if you have, just for people listening, if you have your Rune on Binance or KuCoin, you have the BEP2 version. So you would have to first go through like the conversion process to get native Rune, or sometimes people will take advantage of the arbitrage if BEP2 is trading higher. But once you kind of get your native Rune, then there's really only two ways to put it to use, and for most users, one way, which is a two-sided liquidity pool. The only other way is the only way to earn single-sided is to be a node operator, or now to pool with a small group of people to be a node operator. That requires a lot of Rune, but that's single-sided. And there's only 101 nodes total, so quite competitive. But for most of us, you know, the move is to do a two-sided LP. But you're right. That doesn't mean you necessarily want to do asymmetrical, because that's like a trading decision. That's like a decision to trade half. So the best move is to, at least personally, is to pair it with an asset that I already hold, or I'm choosing to buy anyways, right? Like if I'm already holding Bitcoin and I'm already holding Rune, then it's kind of a no-brainer. Or if like really soon it's like, oh, you're already holding UST, or you're having it in Anchor Earn, throw that with some Rune. Now you have twice the principal earning. So that's basically the only option as of now. Way into the future, there will be, you know, the single-sided savings vaults, which won't have Rune, at least in the V1, but eventually there will be single-sided options, pretty likely.
But there's no delegation with the Thor node operators, right? I mean, I assume most of us don't have that kind of Rune to be a node operator ourselves, but there is no way to pool with others or, you know, delegate to someone. That's not an option, right? On THORChain?
Not exactly. Yeah, not in the way you're thinking, like not like on a Terra or something where you can just, you know, put in 10 Luna or something like that. Right. But we were talking about actually just on today's like updates, like earlier in this space, just in the last week, something came out to enable nodes to pool with like a select group of trusted individuals. It's like a way to do that, but it's trust based. You have to like know the node operator. You have to, you know, basically be trusting them. But like, you know, a small group of friends or something like that, or a business could, you know, put this together that has a reputation. So there's stuff like that happening, but yeah, there's no, you know, stake 100 Rune to a node operator sort of thing. So
thank you.
Cool. Also, just saw a notice that just enabled the churn. So that's like the next up on the list for Terra to go live. So chugging along, looks like it's happening. That's pretty exciting to see the churn taking place in 4 minutes or something like that. Cool. Let's go to DeFi Zealot.
Hey, yeah, thanks a lot. I guess my question might be exactly timely. I've been hearing about things going live in Luna or the Terra blockchain in terms of liquidity providing and stuff. So I'm a little new to Rune, and I was just looking to come into it from either from the Cosmos side or from Luna. That's where you know we're lunatics over here. And can you just quickly summarize for some new people here in terms of like what's the best way to bring in like, you know, Luna and UST and kind of stay around in this ecosystem, but provide LP on the THORSwap ecosystem as well. Like I'm looking to maximize Luna and Rune basically as much as possible. Like the only place I'm finding Luna on the THORSwap site app is just for swapping between Luna to Rune, but I haven't seen anything else that we can do. Is it just because we're just waiting for things to go live? And it would be awesome if you could give a summary of how we can stay within like Cosmos. And then one last question is just around, I know that Thor's, I guess the Rune Thor ecosystem is also on Cosmos somehow. And is there any plans of like connecting via IBC?
Yeah. So the first part, you know, what can you do with Luna? So yeah, what you're seeing is basically just because this is rolling out like literally at this moment, like today, as we're recording Friday, March 25th. So by the time people are listening back to this in the future, it's probably already live and whatnot. But yeah, right now it's literally just being rolled out. So at this very moment, you still can't do anything actually. But by very soon, within a matter of hours, you'll be able to swap with Luna. So that means you'll be able to swap to or from, you know, Luna with any integrated asset. If you are coming from like only Terra and you're kind of like a Terra only sort of person, then you can still use a Terra Station wallet to do that. for the Terra side, but you'll still need like some other chain wallet for whatever else you're trying to do, right? If you're trying to swap from Luna into Rune, then you're going to need some sort of THORChain Rune wallet to store that Rune and to use it. For LPing, you could just add from only Terra Station, like you could just dump your Luna into the Luna Rune pool, but you have to think of that as selling half of that Luna to buy Rune. So that might just factor into how you're making that decision. If you're already holding Rune, then kind of like you were talking about, that's really the move is Luna Rune pool. You want more Luna, you want more Rune, you want exposure to both. For me, that's going to be like the way to go is pair those up together and put them into the pool 50-50. Also, yeah, we talked about this earlier, but just for people popping in, the UST pool will have to go through the normal churn in process, which means the highest pending pool goes through on the next churn. So basically what that means for people is that Luna will be live today, but UST will be live in something like 3 days. So everything we just said about like what you'll be able to do with Luna will also apply to UST. And yeah, just as far as like what wallets you need and stuff like that, depends what you're trying to do, right? If you just want Rune, you'll need some kind of THORChain wallet. If you have Bitcoin on a ledger, you could just you could either connect your ledger to receive Bitcoin, or you could just enter even a recipient address. So you don't even have to, you could put my address if you want. So you really have all kinds of options there. Then on the Cosmos question, yeah, it sounds like that's one of the highest priority things. Kind of like this Terra launch has been number one for a while. And I actually asked Chad Barraford this at the beginning of this space. If you could probably find it later, but we talked about it a bit. And basically, yeah, Rune will be IBC enabled. What sounds like relatively soon. I mean, I don't know any exact timeline, but that's definitely one of the top things to be in the pipeline. So then you could potentially see Rune out on osmosis pools and whatever else is going on over there. But yeah, definitely coming.
Cool. Thanks so much. So just quickly in summary, then just wait for the pools to come alive. Can bring in some Luna, get also a Thor wallet, and supply Luna Thor for now for the next 3 days, and then UST will be available as well. Got it. Thank you so much.
Yep, for sure. And for wallets, you could go with XDeFi, Trust Wallet, Ledger, the Thor Wallet mobile app. Yeah, those are probably like the top ones, but quite a list. That's just for Rune. If you want to have just like Ethereum, for example, you could connect a MetaMask wallet. Like you really kind of always have a variety of options just on what you're trying to do. By the way, just for everyone, real quick, Chad B was saying he's focusing on the churn and the Terra update at the moment. So I think I'll just kind of take these last few questions that are up here. Hopefully they're not questions directly better for Chad B and stuff that I can handle, but we'll just take like the last few speakers that are up and then probably wrap this up.
Just one quick follow up here. When I'm providing Luna and Rune, for example, so where does the like for LPs, what are you getting the APYs back in? Do you get to pick, or does it come back in Luna or Rune, or what happens to that?
Right. So your pool share is just always 50-50 at all times. So that fluctuates based on the price action of the two, right? So the APY that you're seeing is sort of assuming that the asset, and this is for any LP, right? It's assuming that the assets track together or stay relatively flat. In reality, if one asset goes up or down, then you're left with more or less of one of the two assets. So your APY can be, it's not like a fixed APY. And also the APY is just based on the actual activity of the pool. So how much swaps are coming through it. As for just what you're earning in, it's just your pool share basically accruing that value, because those fees and all of that are just going into the pool. So there's no like claiming rewards or restaking or needing to compound or claim or anything. It's just that your pool share is hopefully over time redeemable for more, right? So it's just in the same two assets that you had. Your exposure the whole time is the two assets. But when you withdraw, assuming you added symmetrically, like you added Luna and Rune, you actually do have the option of how you want to withdraw. But I would just see that more of like a convenience feature, or maybe some sort of tax strategy. For example, if you add from only Luna and then you withdraw only Luna, your exposure is always still the same 50-50. The impermanent loss protection is always the same 50-50. But there could be like some personal strategies of why you might want to do that. But so yeah, if you add Luna and Rune, you can withdraw 50-50 in the end, or you could withdraw straight to Luna or straight to Rune. But it would basically just be a swap on the way out. It's like it doesn't actually change the how the rewards worked all along.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I think the biggest thing there for a lot of people that is new to LPing is that you have impermanent loss protection, 1% a day. So at the end of 100 days, you basically have 50-50 the value of whatever the two token in the pool is that you hold. So that's to me that's a very cool thing. And I think that is why, like, if you have the native Rune and there's another asset that you like BTC or Luna or whatever, it makes completely sense just to, just put it into that pool and you're good. After 100 days, you're guaranteed no permanent loss. And, the value has the APY that you were after is there. So.
Yeah, totally. The, basically the protection is such that if you had been better off just holding the two assets straight outright, you're protected up to that value. So if you put in 100 Rune and 10 Luna, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to withdraw minimum 10 Luna and 100 Rune. But what it does mean is that it takes a snapshot of that 100 Rune and 10 Luna. And then after 100 days, you're going to withdraw at least the value of 10 Luna and 10 Luna and 100 Rune. But by then the prices could have fluctuated differently such that you're actually withdrawing different quantities of each, but you're not worse off than if you had just held that initial split from the beginning. That's kind of to me, the clearest way of thinking about it. Let's just, there's a few other people up here. Whoever has something to ask, just feel free to jump in.
Hi guys.
Hey.
So, with the hype around Stargate and Zero Layer, I haven't really done a lot of looking into sort of understanding THORChain, because my understanding is that it's also along the lines of multi-chain and unified liquidity. I just wanted to understand from your perspective how the underlying technology is actually different from what Layer 0 and Stargate are actually doing.
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. And just to clarify, Chad B, the core dev, I think has probably stepped out now. And I'm not a dev myself and not an expert on Layer 0, but I'll do my best just from what I've heard and stuff. Well, first off is that Layer 0 does not, I believe, is only EVM, at least for now, and probably would never be would include stuff like UTXO chains. Whereas THORChain's just pure economic security model, can work with theoretically any chain. And that's kind of the cool thing, right? It's not just limited to IBC or EVM or Polkadot or something like that. It can actually just integrate any chain. And THORChain has native Bitcoin, native Ethereum, native Luna. There's never any wrapping. There's never any externalities like price oracles, which is a big difference from something like Layer 0, where, as far as I understand, it's kind of like a messaging thing, and then it's using price oracles and stuff like that. Whereas a key feature, or almost like a philosophical decision of THORChain, is that it does not have any externalities. It just works off of these pure economic incentives, which is why it takes a lot of collateral to secure it. It's less efficient in that way, but it's more bulletproof in any scenario, because no matter what, the nodes are just bonding more value than the cross-chain assets that they're securing. So they're never they're always going to lose if they act dishonestly. Basically, there's no way for them to collude and end up with more money than they had at stake by having to bond all of that and not being able to have it be delegated and whatnot. So, and then prices, everything is set just by, again, pure economic incentives. It's just arbitrage, real L1 assets. Arbitrageurs are basically like a main user of THORChain just to set the prices. I think no externalities is a huge difference, and just the ability to take any chain. It's just kind of more of a ground up, like first principles approach to like, how do we solve the problem for all of crypto, rather than just have like many different solutions that are kind of like all patched together.
Okay. And you were saying that you use native tokens, right? So there's no such thing as sort of synthetics, creating a synthetic or a wrap token to actually then bridge or swap across chains. Does it all happen within sort of a single wrap transaction?
So yeah, interesting distinction there, because THORChain does have a synthetics feature, but that's a newer thing that just allows for quicker arbitrage and lower fee, higher frequency trading. That those synthetics are backed by the native L1 pools. So for the core stuff we're talking about here, like just understanding THORChain from the beginning, is it's only native assets. Like there's no such thing as like, bridging in and then being in the THORChain world and then bridging out. It's like, it's purely L1 assets the entire time. So basically the THORChain nodes control wallet addresses, native wallet addresses for all the various chains. Like they have Bitcoin wallet addresses, Terra wallet addresses, Binance wallet addresses, and so on. And basically THORChain is monitoring these real native wallets. And then the nodes are, again, they have more at stake than they have to lose by they're securing these cross-chain assets. So basically, like Bitcoin comes into a native Bitcoin wallet that is controlled. So sorry, you as a swapper, like you say you want to send in Bitcoin and get out Ethereum. You're sending in real native Bitcoin to a real native Bitcoin wallet address that is controlled by THORChain. And you're sending that Bitcoin in with a very specific set of instructions on what you expect to get out. And that every pool is paired with Rune, which is kind of like what allows the cross-chain swaps on the back end. So your Bitcoin goes into the Bitcoin Rune pool with a message saying, hey, I expect to get this much real ETH out of the ETH Rune pool. And then that ETH is sent out to the address that you specified or connected. And then Rune kind of moves on the back end and arbitrage happens. As a user, you don't need Rune. You don't need a THORChain address. You don't even need to know that it exists if it was abstracted away through some kind of simplified application. But, from your perspective, it's just real Bitcoin in, real ETH out. On the back end, Rune is facilitating that. And the nodes are, controlling this liquidity, this real native L1 liquidity, by having to bond more Rune than they are than they're controlling.
Gotcha. So you're saying that there's sort of no issue of fractured or fragmented liquidity then across chains, because it's all native, right? You're not having to say, move. I guess if someone, for example, if someone had like a Luna token from Avalanche and then they wanted to move it to another chain, for example, like how would that actually work in terms of thinking about the native tokens and how that worked across chains? Because I would understand BTC to ETH natively, because they exist on their own chains as a native token. But how would that work theoretically from, if I said Luna from Avalanche to somewhere else?
So you mean if you had like a wrapped version of Luna on Avalanche?
Yeah, exactly.
So, that step to get back, so it's about the native assets with what THORChain at the core is doing, right? So this would allow you to go from like Avalanche isn't integrated yet, by the way, but like in the future, you would just be able to swap native L1 Luna to native Avalanche. something like the DEX aggregator features, which are kind of coming, would allow like multiple routing steps in a swap. So for example, in that case, you might be able to go from like Luna, or you might go from Avalanche Luna to Avalanche to Luna in essentially one step, or to whatever you wanted, right? But THORChain itself, like the core pools, nothing is like it wouldn't deal in a wrapped asset because it would break like the economic security model. It just deals in like the native assets. So the real Avalanche, the real Luna, but then you have DEX aggregators and stuff like that, which would allow you to go from like any asset on the supported chain to any other asset on the other supported chain. The core THORChain part is kind of doing like the difficult thing that like generally hasn't been solved, which is like the L1 to L1. And then the DEX aggregation can kind of handle like the other steps, like an Avalanche DEX or like a Terra DEX or whatever, right?
Gotcha. So the way you guarantee finality then is through the use of Rune. Is that correct? As an intermediary?
Yeah. So the receiving swap just isn't sent out until the Thor nodes confirm that your inbound transaction is legit, basically. So, it's watching those actual vaults, and then only at that point is it issuing the real L1 transaction out. So meaning like time-wise, it totally does depend on those native chains. Like a Bitcoin to Ethereum swap is not instant. It's based on how long those chains take, and gas fees apply to whatever chain you're using, which is kind of ties back into the other thing you brought up, which is synthetics. So THORChain does have synthetics that are backed by the L1 pools. For example, like Synth BTC is backed by the Rune BTC pool with native assets, 50-50, right? So, and then there's those synthetic assets are used for like a lot of bots are starting to use them. This is a newer feature, by the way. Or just people that are more like day traders, want to avoid gas, want exposure to ETH without ETH gas, want to trade into Bitcoin without waiting 20 minutes. So that's kind of a way to trade like a THORChain native asset that is not a wrapped asset, but it's collateralized by the underlying native assets.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And
All
I
right.
think one
That was really helpful. Sorry, go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, I was gonna say there is one thing because my brother asked me this all the time, like how is THORChain more secure than a bridge or a wrap asset? So basically, if you understand something like a wormhole, right? Mm-hmm. If you bridge a Ethereum from Ethereum over to Solana, you have these wormhole wrap Ethereum token, the Solana base in your wallet. But you don't really have an actual token, right? The security is in the bridge. And so that's why once the bridge get hacked, you screw. With THORChains, once a swap happen, then you actually have a token. So like from there on, there's no like security dependency on THORChain at all. And for me, that's like the biggest difference, right? There's no, every wrap token that you own, the security is actually not your wallet, whatever. The security is actually on the bridge. When you swap on THORChain, once a swap is done, there's no security tie, whatever, whatsoever to THORChain, your wallet, that token is it. And so
not your keys, not your coins, exactly.
Chad, just one quick thing on THORSynth. If you buy a THORSynth, is it possible to swap a BTC THORSynth into native BTC on THORSwap?
Yeah, that's exactly the idea. So technically that would be called burning the synth, but the way it looks like in the user interface, it's exactly like a swap. So when you're on THORSwap now, and this is only in the last like 2 weeks or so, but now when you kind of just look at the you just look at the assets, right? If you just like pull up the asset list, you'll see like a tab for synth, or you'll just see the most popular assets, and some will be labeled as synth. And basically, if you're swapping a native asset to a synth, that's technically a mint. And if you're swapping a synth to a native asset, that's technically a burn, but it looks like a swap. Like it behaves like a swap. The only difference there would be, or not difference, but the only thing to note would be when you're minting and redeeming, like there's a real L1 transaction happening there. So at that stage, there is potentially gas or block times.
That's why I asked, because if you're in a rush and trying to get exposure, at least you can transaction instead of waiting for the L1 transaction and then later on one transaction when the fees are low or when you have more time, etc.
Exactly. So you could like let's say you right now you wanted exposure to like Bitcoin or ETH or something. You could mint synthetic Bitcoin or synthetic ETH from actually any asset that's supported. So whatever you had or whatever was fast, you could mint it from Rune, you could mint it from BNB, or soon you could mint it from UST, or just from the actual native asset. Just that's gonna, again, from ETH would have ETH gas, but then you could just very quickly and cheaply get into synthetic BTC or synthetic ETH, do whatever trading around or price exposure you were trying to do. And then either you stay in the synth world and it's always one-to-one redeemable, or or when you redeem back out, you do that like at a time you choose or whatever, you're ready to do that. But then, if you were redeeming synth BTC to real BTC, then, that's a real BTC transaction. So you'd have to wait for that.
Got it. Thanks. And I don't know if you already covered this, but I'm sure this might help others too. The process of converging a BEP2 rune from KuCoin or Binance to native rune, could you just quickly summarize? It's been a while since I did that. Is that done on the exchange or is that done natively? Is that done in the THORSwap DEX?
Yeah, there's actually, I'm trying to find if I can quickly pin a video that I did for THORSwap. I'm trying to find it. Well, if you want to walk through, just go to THORSwap community YouTube, or just search on YouTube like THORSwap BEP2 Rune. But there's a couple ways of doing it. One would be the standard upgrade, which is the easiest, but I'll explain in a second why you might not always want to do that. This is just a one-to-one upgrade. So basically you would send your Binance Rune, your BEP2 Rune, whether that's KuCoin, Gate, Binance, basically every exchange, you'd send that to a Binance wallet. So if you have like an XDeFi or Trust wallet or even Ledger, you're sending it to the BNB wallet, not the Binance Smart Chain, but the regular Binance Chain BNB address. And you have your BEP2 Rune there. You'll need a tiny bit of BNB for the upgrade fee, just because you're sending a BNB transaction basically. So like pennies worth, but you need a tiny bit of BNB in the wallet. And then you just connect to THORSwap, and it'll basically prompt you just to do the one-to-one upgrade into your THORChain wallet. Or if you're using something like a Thor wallet app, same thing. They like prompt you to do it. I think XDeFi is even maybe integrating that feature directly into the wallet, or maybe already has or soon. But that's how you would do the one-to-one. The other thing is that, and this would obviously depend on your like tax implications or whatever, but the other option would be sometimes the Binance Rune on exchange is trading higher than native. This is eventually going to equalize, but because the ARB is kind of one way, this sometimes happens. So in some cases, you might be better off to just sell the Rune on the exchange, get some other coin that is integrated into THORSwap, like BTC, though that's slow, or BNB, or soon as of later today, like Luna, and then use that to just do a swap on THORSwap or XDeFi or Thor Wallet or DeFi Spot or whatever you're using.
Got it.
And in that case, you might end up with more quantity of Rune than you had. So
makes sense. Thanks.
For sure.
Yeah, and to add that right now you almost 100% of the time want to do the second step that Chad mentioned, because the BEP2 or BEP20 Rune or the ER20 Rune is always like 4 or 5%, or not always, but most of the time it's like 4% higher than the native Rune. And so if you do a straight conversion, you're gonna lose like 4%. It's rather you just sell for BNB and then use THORSwap to swap it for native Rune or something like that. So
yeah, it's quite significant right now. 929 on THORSwap and 973 on Binance. So yeah, I see that. Thanks.
Yeah, it fluctuates. So yeah, honestly, if you're in, this is just my personal opinion, if you're in the BEP2, like take advantage of the ARB, because at some point it's going to go away entirely. The only reason to hold it would be if you think the ARB is going to go up, which is possible. But otherwise you're just kind of leaving more rune on the table that you could just be locking in a higher quantity of rune for the future when they are 1-to-1. And eventually when BEP2 totally phases out and won't even matter, you're just going to want the native anyways to actually use it, by using all these THORChain apps or being able to go to liquidity pools and all of that. So it's definitely the one to have.
No, this is just fantastic tip. I just know it's a 4.5% difference right now. So thanks for letting me know that.
Nice. Yeah. If it were me, I would probably just grab it. I mean, I've seen it higher, but I feel like it's been trending towards equalizing lately. Even the other day, it was a 1-to-1 the other day for a bit. So if it were me, I would probably just jump on it. But that's just me.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's as high as it gets, is like 4 to 5% whenever rune pumps.
Yeah, like a few weeks ago, it did go crazy. It was like 12% or something for like a brief period. Yeah, it was insane.
Oh my God,
but that's pretty short lived. And I doubt it will happen again. That I feel like that was just because suddenly people were looking at Rune. Like Rune had kind of been suppressed and under the radar for a while, and suddenly there's just like a bunch of people were jumping in, and like the liquidity is lower on central. Like most of the Rune is native Rune. So long term, like it's only one direction, right? Like there's no going back, which is also why that ARB even exists, because you can't take your native Rune and 1-to-1 swap it to BEP2 Rune and sell it on Binance. Like that direction isn't possible, which is why the ARB even exists at all. It's just because traders going to trade and all of that, and they just do their thing on the centralized exchange or bots or whatever. And yeah.
Cool.
I just want to add to that. One of the main reasons why, because I get this question all the time, especially when I'm making content, is where do you buy Rune? And you guys even saw it with Coin Bureau. A lot of people don't realize you can just buy Rune on THORSwap without even having Rune. That's why most people are buying it on the exchanges. It's just easier to do. It really is. I know it sounds, it's crazy, but it is. But another thing is some people who actually use like KuCoin lending or Binance lending, you can actually lend out your Rune and get a yield on it. I don't recommend, especially with like your whole entire bag, because if you're doing that, well, not your keys, not your crypto. But it's a way you can get a yield on Thor or on the Rune token. Like sometimes it'll be like 60% APR or APY on a day. And sometimes it'll only be like 30. Yeah, dude, it's juiced. It's pretty crazy. The reason why is because the token it's really illiquid. So like when it's trading like right now, like I have some on KuCoin, it's like 60% APR. It's crazy.
That's on KuCoin only, Drake.
Yeah, and someone just called me. Someone just called me. I had no idea what you just said.
I was asking you if it's on.
It's on KuCoin. Yeah, Binance. I used to use that in the old days, and we know how that rolls. They took all my tokens. Yeah, see that's why. They not closed it down, but yeah, you know the gig. I'm in the U.S. I don't need to say anything else.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting tip. I didn't realize that the rates like that on KuCoin could be that high. Maybe that's partially why. Partially that probably contributes to the ARB itself, right? Like that probably creates some demand over there and whatnot.
And there's one other thing is like when the DEX was down for I don't know 6-7 hours or something like that. When THORChain was doing the upgrade, you could trade on KuCoin, but you can't do it on THORSwap. And I remember back in the hack, the chain was halted, so you were basically stuck in there. So it's basically just opportunity cost, I guess you can say. So you just have more flexibility having both. But obviously, eventually, when they do say bye-bye, like no more of these pegged assets, well, then I mean, dude, like it's over. Get off. Get back onto THORSwap.
Yeah, and even by then too, they'll probably have native Rune on exchanges by then too. So might still be the ARB would go away, but maybe like their lending and leverage is still probably going to be a thing. But yeah, just to reiterate your first point,
dude, it's saucy right now. 0.158% per day.
That's good.
Well, that's not bad.
That's really good.
But yeah, just reiterating your first point, yeah, because I think that's so like key to understanding THORChain, and where like a lot of people like that Coin Bureau video. I'm sure there's still a lot of confused people out there, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just like that's kind of the whole point of THORChain, right? It's like you like, oh, how do I get this asset on another chain? Like, if only there is like a way to do that. And it's like, oh, the solution is the thing you're trying to get, which is also really cool. Because I think when somebody buys, like let's say somebody takes Bitcoin and buys Rune for the first time, like you're like tasting the product, you know what I mean? Which is really cool, and I think that's like a really good first onboarding experience to THORChain, because you just did a cross-chain swap, and you're like, whoa, it worked. Now I have Rune, I had Bitcoin on a completely other chain, and I just used something that looked like SushiSwap, except I just connected completely different blockchains, which is like really like the key value prop. So it's really cool to just like, get that first experience that way.
Hey, so I wanted to mention, we were talking about Thor Wallet earlier. It looks like they do have an affiliate fee. That must be the fee that they charge you. It's a 10% fee, so it's pretty hefty. And you think THORswap doesn't have that at all right now?
There's that must be. There's no way it's 10%. I'm not sure what that 10% is referring to.
Well, it's affiliate fee, so I figured it was, but I mean, it's crazy.
I think you're talking about TGT. I'm pretty sure that's 10% of like the fees. So like if it's a third
Right.
of a percent, it's 10% of that third. So it's like really tiny.
Oh, okay. Maybe
it's not.
No,
like,
you're right. It's not
$1 million.
10%. I'm sorry. It's only
Yeah.
a percent.
Yeah.
I fucked on my math.
It's typically, generally, like these, like it's kind of a rough standard, like across the board. It's usually like a third of a percent, or something like that.
I think it's a percent, because I it was exactly I traded 23.90 whatever, and it was $2,300, and it was a 23 something dollar fee. So
well, just keep in mind that like what we're talking about with the affiliate fee is separate from just like the actual pool using fee, like the slippage and the gas fees. Like the affiliate fee is just the platform fee,
Right.
which like so the core like THORChain fees are going to be the same on any platform. But then one platform.
No, I understand that. Yeah,
right.
I'll send you a screenshot of what I got. It's that way you can let me know. I'll just DM it to you or something. The other thing I want to know, in 2 weeks, man, are we gonna do a live show in Miami or something?
I don't know. I think you were talking to Chad B about that, right?
Yeah. I wanted to know if you guys are coming to Miami, because I don't know how many people here are gonna come to Miami, but it's gonna be a great time. I'm sure anybody that's into THORChain, which is everybody, wants to have some sort of meetup.
Yeah, I might be going to Miami, and I can help facilitate that on my channel if you guys need.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know if I'll see if
I'll be in Miami. Sorry, I've just been off and working on some things, but I'll be in Miami for the conference coming up.
Okay, cool.
So maybe if we can work together to figure out something, we could probably
sounds great. Yeah, definitely. All right, well, appreciate it, guys, and we'll see you in Miami in 2 weeks, and enjoy some of the sunshine and get out of this cold weather. I don't know where you guys are at, but I'm in Montana. I'm freezing my ass off. So
cool. Does anyone up here have like a last burning question, or maybe we'll just wrap up? We're past 3 hours.
Yes, I have a question. Good to be back here. Had to leave for a little bit, but I've just been listening in. So what I want to ask, another thing I kind of was in and out on in yesterday's call, I wanted to learn a little bit more about lending and borrowing, the THORFi, as everyone seems to be calling it, and because I'm a bit of a DeFi degen, and I'm trying to also innovate on my strategies a little bit and play around with some of the pools that you all offer. And also, I keep like going like spastically back and forth on my computer, just like just wanting to know when this is when Luna and UST are gonna be on there. I'm so excited. Anyways, I was just hoping you could educate And you might have already spoken about this already. I'm sorry about that. I was just gone for a bit.
Yeah, no worries. So it sounds like, I mean, so on the Luna UST stuff, first off, Luna is going live today, at some point in the next handful of hours or whatever. So people will be able to start swapping Luna to and from any other asset that's integrated, Bitcoin, BNB, ERC20s, all of that. The UST pool is next behind that, just because one pool churns at a time. So Luna is going in, and then UST will be the highest pending pool, which means it'll churn in on the next churn. So probably about 3 days. As for like THORFi, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have any specific question, but just to kind of note broadly, the THORFi stuff is super exciting. I can hardly sleep at night thinking about THORFi, but it's also important to note that this stuff is like further out, right? Like months. So just so nobody gets too ahead of themselves, like we're definitely thinking months in the future with this, and the design is just kind of being like this is kind of the phase for anyone to like point out any concerns with the design, stuff like that. But long term, I think THORFi is going to be like absolutely killer in DeFi. Like if it pulls it off, it'll just be insane. No liquidation loans, starting at effectively 100% LTV, fixed rate savings on assets like BTC, Luna. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any like particular part of it you were curious about?
Yeah. So you just kind of picked up on some of that, on some of the things I was curious about. Like how are you guys able to do no liquidation loans, or at least in theory? I know this is months out, so I don't know if this is. I assume that the plan is on paper, and you guys are building it slowly but surely. And how are you guys able to also offer 100% on that? I mean, just the possibilities of that I'm thinking of are just nuts here. Like I could lend out an asset, get 100% of that value, and then go short that asset, so I can still maintain exposure and still profit if the asset falls in price, without any worries whatsoever. I know that's a pretty basic strategy, but it's just stuff like that I think is crazy. And I don't know. I'm losing sleep thinking about it as well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely wild. The first thing to clarify, I can go deeper on this in a second, but it starts at 100% collateralization ratio, technically just above, and it does scale up with usage. So the CR is basically set by how much of the total pool depth is collateral versus just regular LP. So you won't be able to just 100% loop until you have $1 trillion in your wallet. Once the utilization of the loans goes up, the LTV goes down as that scales, or CR goes up. I never know which way to say it. It's basically the inverse, right? So LTV goes down or CR goes up as there's more lending taking place. The no liquidation thing comes from, and I'm still getting my head around this too, by the way. Like I'm not the one that designed it. I'm just reading it as well. The docs did just come out though, so anyone can find it. THORChain has tweeted it out recently, or even just, I think you should just be able to search like THORFi economic design doc, something like that. You'll find it. But basically, the concept of no liquidation comes from the fact that the core goal of the protocol is to attract liquidity, right? And the collateral for these loans is the LP units. So basically, if the protocol is the lender, and then if the protocol is quote like underwater, it just holds on to that liquidity. And through the design of like the balance between lending and savers, that creates a net deflationary pressure on Rune. So by creating this demand for collateral, which is LP, that deepens the pool, which puts buy pressure on the Rune side in the pool, which causes the security, the bonded Rune of the network to increase as well, which allows for more liquidity to come in. Deeper liquidity also feeds like the traditional liquidity black hole of THORChain, right? The more liquidity, the better swaps. The more people use the swaps, the more APY, the more liquidity. So the 3x TVL still applies to that collateral. And then, so Rune has kind of already benefited on that side when it takes in collateral. And then on the other side, it's creating a net burn on Rune by creating demand on the savings side. So by doing all of that, the protocol is basically already won by the time the loan is initiated. Does that make sense?
I mean, I'm glad this is recorded. I'm definitely gonna have to listen to that a few more times, but I just think the whole thing is unbelievable. Like I can't imagine anyone on this call like being worried. I just very much appreciate what your team is doing and what you guys are accomplishing. You know, it is extremely important, and you know, just happy to be here on the ride.
Well, just to put it a different way than Chad threw out, can you guys hear me okay? Is my voice all robot-like, or is it clear?
Not sure if anyone could hear that, but definitely that cut out for me, Chad.
God damn it. All right. Another time.
Yeah. I think that's a good spot to just wrap up. Just listen to Chad on THORFi. Oh, wait. Pluto's actually requesting. Let's get Pluto up, and then we'll wrap. Connecting. Freaking Twitter Spaces. Connecting. Twitter is really rugging us today. I couldn't hear a word Chad was saying, like basically the whole time. Okay, it seems like Pluto's request like failed or something. Let's see if he tries again real quick, or else we'll just cut it there. All right, guess not. We'll call it there. But this is thanks for tuning in for another marathon of THORFi season. And just exciting times to see Terra launching today. And so everyone, go use it, go test it out, get some liquidity in there, get some swaps going later today, and then UST soon. And then go check out that THORFi doc too and start poking holes in that if you can. But thanks everyone for coming. We do these every Friday, 12 Eastern, weekly update with the devs and open Q&A. And then these are recorded as well, so you can just go back to the space and listen through all that, or they're published permanently on Rune Based Podcast. So thanks for coming, and see you next time.
Thank you.